Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Muftī Zubair. How are you, Mustafa? You okay?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good. How's everyone? I hope everyone's well.
Alhamdulillah, Mustafa.
Good stuff, mashallah. Welcome everyone to the last session. Inshallah, we'll try to get through what we can quickly and then have a little bit more time for the deeper questions that some people may have had. Yesterday we said we'd keep to the end, but there are, in fact, hopefully a few questions being answered anyway. So let me start. Right, here we go. So continuing from what we left off yesterday, we were talking about the conflict resolution, yes? How to resolve, and we understood the concepts of when you have different people with different mindset, mentality, when solving conflict and things, yes? So now, when to solve the conflict? So that's the question, obviously. Everyone tries to solve conflict. Most commonly, we have people trying to solve the conflict when you're in the heat of the moment, isn't it? I'm sure everyone does that, right? So you want to discuss it right now. No, I want to talk about it right now. And then people will be blocking each other's pathway to exit the room, and things will get out of hand, and all sorts of things can happen, right? So this is a very nonsensible thing to do, you can say, which is that when a conflict arises, it's not wise to be immediately try to discuss, as both partners are often angry or they're going to be upset, yeah, and not in the correct frame of mind to discuss the problem fairly and come to a solution. So it's not going to happen. You're not going to come to a solution at the time when the problem occurs. It's the heat of that moment. You're not going to get any solution there. You probably end up creating more problems for yourself than solving any problems. So at that particular time, you just have to leave it. You have to learn to really be calm at that particular time in terms of trying to think of a solution and demanding some sort of solution to be brought up. You'll end up, just raising your voices at each other, and you just get a heated discussion and argument. That's all that will happen, nothing else. So we have to learn this. We have to reflect and understand that the conflict cannot be solved straight away. It just cannot happen. So don't expect it, is the first thing. So what do? I normally tell people, therefore, it's best to have like a mutual agreement, have an agreement between the two of you that, look, when there's major issues that we talked about yesterday, when these major issues or recurring issues happen, then we need to talk about it. Then that, should any problem arise, we will discuss it within 3 days, for example, of the occurrence. So if something happens, then within 3 days, we have to have sat down and talked about it. If you don't have some sort of timeline like this, he will just constantly put it off. I say he because that's the reason why he's generally the culprit. He'll constantly put it off, and he'll say, oh, not right now. And then she may even think that, oh, things are going smooth right now, let me not discuss it right now. And then they'll both just leave it until a few months down the line when that problem comes up again and say, last time, look, we needed to sort this carries on happening, and it's not going to go away. The problem's not going to go away because you haven't solved the problem. So have some sort of an idea that within 3 days, we're going to have to sit down and discuss it. What this will do, it'll create in the mind of whichever partner is trying to ignore the problems, it will create in their mind, the back of the mind that, I'm going to have to sit down anyway. So I might as well try to solve it. Whilst the days are going past, maybe that day, that later on that day that you had an argument, you would be thinking of solutions because you're going to have to sit down and come to some sort of solution. Does that make sense? So it plays a very, very positive role psychologically for both partners when they have, because you'll notice, I guarantee you do this, that we're going to have to sit down in 3 days and do it, solve the problem. I guarantee you, most of the times you won't even have to do this. Most of the times you won't have to do this. I mean, I think I've given this to some people already. I don't know if they're on or not, but I'm sure many people will attest to this, that I've told to do this particular thing and adopt this method. Most of them come back with feedback saying that, yeah, this hardly arises now. I don't have to sit down within 3 days and actually talk about it. Because many people complain that we're forever constantly, discussing problems. We're just constantly discussing problems. But that's because you don't have a plan. You don't have anything. And if you have a plan like this, like I say, what will happen is psychologically it'll play a part in the mind of the partner, each partner, and maybe because you're going to have to sit down, you'd rather solve the problem without having to sit down. So what you'll do is just solve the problem. So that later on that day, what will happen is he'll maybe send a message, or she'll send a message saying that, oh, I'm sorry about this. This happened. I realize your point, and we'll just do it like this now. So you're like, oh, okay, it happened now. We'll do it like this then. So the problem is actually solved over maybe a text message. Remember, I told you not to message, right? But when there's things that are, something which is good, positive thing that can't be taken any other way, then it's good. You can send messages. I didn't say that you can't send messages to each other. Yeah. So sometimes things can be solved very simply by actually solving the problem by doing what needs to be done before that time comes of the 3 days, because it's like a timeline and you've got a time limit, 3 days. I have to solve the problem quickly. Otherwise, we're going to have to sit down before 3 days and solve the problem. So it gives you something. So your problems will more or less be sorted if you go by this. This is a very, very powerful tool, I say anyway, of conflict resolution. Hopefully people take onto that, yes? And then, so this ensures that the problem doesn't get overlooked and then it fester, obviously, otherwise it's gonna create further frustration, because it's gonna be there and the problem hasn't been solved. And then you're gonna have, more and more problems, newer problems, because, you haven't solved the initial problem, which is then causing, like a snowball effect, is causing further problems to arise because there's frustration pending from previous problems that haven't been solved. So that's the reason for this. So this is a very important slide in understanding how to solve, where to solve. Hopefully people understand that, right? And as I said previously, if we go along, if there's questions, as asked, okay? Now, how to solve a conflict internally, meaning between the two of you, because generally speaking, people do want to solve the problem themselves. They don't want the laundry hanging up for drying. People normally say, we don't want to tell everyone our problems. It's between us. Let's keep it in our relationship. But you can try to do that initially, no doubt. You want to internally sort a problem out. So the biggest contributor to solving a problem will be this: communication. Number one, communication. Without communication, good communication, you will never solve a problem. It just won't happen. So you're gonna have to have good communication between the two of you. Okay. So most problems are created due to a lack of or miscommunication. So a lack of communication or a miscommunication, which leads to misunderstanding. Okay, there's a misunderstanding between the two of you, and it's simply is solved by you sitting down and explaining why you said something or why you did something, and it becomes clear. All right, okay, that's no problem. Then that's it, done. So to solve this, you have to have the correct mindset when discussing. This is the number one important thing, which most people don't do, I'm afraid. So have the correct mindset when sitting and discussing an issue. So you sit with the intention of actually listening to your partner. You're going to sit down with the intention of listening to your partner and not just to try to prove your point. And that is the biggest thing that I noticed, that people, we sit, why? Because I'm going to have my say now. Oh yeah, now I'm going to tell you my mind. I'm going to give you something now. Yeah, I'm going to tell you how it is, and you're going to realize how I feel. And it's all about centered through yourself. Your focus is on you, as though everything is about you. Okay, both partners I'm talking to here, yes, that both of them are sitting there with the intention that and the clues to understanding that they're sitting with this intention is when your partner says something, your mind is thinking, how can I answer them? Oh yeah, I can answer them in this way. And sometimes you may want to write it down just in case you forget, because they're having a long discussion and they want to make sure that they don't get interrupted. So they've already set the rule that, let me speak and don't interrupt me. So you're there sitting there writing notes because you want to answer everything. That's not the way this works. If you are sitting with this mindset, it's pointless. You're wasting time. Both of you are wasting time, because you're just sitting there to try to rebut and give a rebuttal to their arguments and give your point of view, and they want to give their point of view, and that's it. It's a stalemate. You're just playing a tug of war. They're pulling from their side, you're pulling from your side, and that's it. You're not going to get anywhere like this. So this is a very important point in terms of sitting down and communicating. If you're going to do it, then do it correctly. If you're not going to do it correctly, it's better you don't sit down. It's better you don't sit down and talk about it, because you're going to talk about issues that are just going to make things more highlighted, and it's going to become issues and issues, and it becomes more and more issues, and you'll be constantly sitting down, and you'll be like, we're always sitting down and talking. That's because you don't sit down with the correct mindset. It's as simple as that. If both partners sat there with the correct mindset, with this mindset of actually listening to your partner. So your idea is that I'm going to sit there, try and actually pay attention to my partner and try to understand my partner. Why are they saying this? What is it that created this feeling in them? What is it that's making them think in this manner? It's something I did. Well, maybe I shouldn't do this next time. So it's something, a point to take constructive for yourself that will then allow you to then better yourself for your partner. Because this is what the marriage is, partnership is. You're not going to get somebody. It's hard to find somebody that is perfect for you, made and done. It's not going to happen. It doesn't happen in the world like this. You have to mold each other. You have to help each other to better one another. You have to better each other as your personalities will better, your character will better. It's a partnership, you see. It's a matter of bettering one another. So that will only happen if you give it that time and you allow that to happen by listening to your partner. I mean, I can't stress the importance of this. So if you're going to communicate and sit down and talk, try to solve the problem, then this is the way to do it. You must sit down with the mindset that you're going to listen to your partner, not give answers to your partner. Now, while the spouse is speaking, consciously think about what you can do to prevent this happening again. That's the point I'm trying to make. Yeah. So what can you do to prevent this happening again? This feeling they have, this thought that they're having. Yes. Don't start thinking about rebuttals and as this won't help to solve the situation at hand. The solution won't be there. Okay. Talk about one problem at hand, which is another important thing, that you talk about the problem you've sat for. So you've sat for a certain problem, to discuss a certain problem. Then that means you're discussing that problem and you're trying to come to a solution for that problem. Don't start bringing in all other problems at the same time. You're putting all the problems that but this happened previously and that happened previously. Oh yeah, but remember that as well. And you're putting all the things on the table. Because this never leads to solving any one problem. Because you're not going to end up solving any one problem. You're going to end up just constantly. You're going to end up with, you're trying to solve one problem. You sat there for one problem, but what happened? One partner opened up the whole book and everything came out, and all the problems are out there now. So you can't solve all the problems in one go. So that's why you don't bring more than one problem at a time. You talk about the problem at hand, and that's the way to make this, productive. Otherwise, you're going to have nothing being productively come out of this particular discussion that you're having. So that's an important point as well. Now, when explaining your side of the argument, when you're doing your, you want to have your turn to say what you're saying, the intention should not be to prove them wrong. Okay, that's not your intention, that I want to prove you wrong and I want to tell you how it is. But it should be done with the light of trying to improve them. The idea is you're telling them so that they can understand you. They can understand your thought process. So they can improve and they can adapt to, and they can mold themselves to the way you are also thinking. And they can maybe perhaps explain certain things. So it's to improve them and to explain the matter to them, so it doesn't repeat in the future. That's the reason you're doing this. And, that's the idea and vision you're doing this with. Yes. Is there a question or anything?
No, so continue.
Continue. Okay. So everyone understands this one. Yeah. So you remember doing this, that you're trying to you're trying to improve them, and that's the vision you're saying it. The reason I say this is because then the way you say it, the tone you say it with, the language that you use to even say the point will then be measured. It won't be knocking your partner down. It won't be like constantly like beating down on them, making them feel as though they're worth nothing, they're good for nothing, they're just a very bad person, whatever else. Because that's what happens in these kind of conversations. After the end of it, one person is made to feel as though they're just a very bad person, and that's not a very good feeling. You can't make your partner go through that. So the reason you're saying it is simply to try to make your partner understand you, not to try to beat down on them. Keeping the above in mind will ensure you speak the right things during your conversation to actually solve the issue then. And you won't simply be trying to get back at each other, trying to get one over them and trying to hurt each other and whatever else. That's not what's going to happen here. So that this conversation will never escalate to an argument anymore, because you've got all of this in place. So you must sit with this, and you will, at the end of it, you will come to a solution. And then lastly, is to make sure the discussion leads to a viable solution. Make sure you have a viable solution at the end. Don't just discuss and that's it. Obviously, if it's something that, the solution is that we've discussed it, and sometimes it may be a point that there's nothing to actively do, but it's something to have a mindset of. At least now you understand where I'm coming from. You understand me now. So sometimes the solution is to actually have a conversation, but there needs to be in mind something that you've actually come to. Continuing with this, how to solve this, how to solve the conflict. So that was number one. Point number one was communication. And point number two is about expectations. Is there a question by somebody?
Bakar, did you have a question?
Mufti Sahib, just wanted to go back to the previous slide.
Yeah.
That if the points are followed, but during the discussion with the spouse, if things are heading in the wrong direction, what would you advise?
You come back to the point. So you have a point, like a home point. Yeah, home point is this one problem that you've sat for. There's one problem that you sat for. This one, that's your. Okay, let's come back to the point. The point is we're trying to discuss this one point. Okay, let's come to a solution for that. Okay, so you always come back home again, because you're gonna in conversation you're gonna start tributating off. You're gonna start it's gonna be this way, that way. You're gonna start talking about this. You're gonna start talking about that. But you have to come back to central point and say, okay, let's come back to what we were here for. We're sat here to solve this problem. Let's talk about that. So what happens? Everything else is then you just leave that, because sometimes it's gonna happen whereby you're gonna start talking about other things.
Yeah.
But the vision is very important that you have. This mindset and this vision that you have is very important to have. Yes. But the way to do it practically, like I said, have like a home button. Yeah, like you've gone far off into some settings. All you do is press home, come back to the home. Yeah. Come back to the home screen, and inshallah you'll be able to get somewhere. Otherwise, you'll be far lost into some deep corner somewhere, and you will never get to a solution. You just don't know where the light is in the tunnel. It makes sense? Hopefully that makes sense. So now, moving from there, we have the second point is very important, which is expectations. Yes. So most arguments, if you think about it, right? When are you ever upset? When do you ever have an argument with your partner? So most arguments, they stem from the fact that a person dealt with you in a manner which didn't meet your expectations. So somebody spoke to you in a manner which you felt was rude. You did not deserve to be spoken to in that manner. Somebody raised their voice at you, whatever. So you think that, how can you speak to me in that manner? No way, how can you do that? And that's when you will be upset with them and you'll have an argument with them. So expectation is the root cause of argument. In terms of you build an expectation of being treated in a certain way. So the father builds an expectation that my children should be dealing with me in a certain way. And as soon as the children don't deal with you in that way, you're going to be upset with them. You're going to be angry at them. So the only time you're going to get angry with somebody, or generally speaking, is when you feel as though You know, it didn't meet your expectations. So what you need to do then is understand that my expectations might be a bit too high. My expectation of my partner might be something unrealistic, right? So then don't hold these expectations with your partner in this manner. Yeah. So most of us, we grow up, you know, watching cartoons in a younger age, and thereafter, you know, wherein the main character, you know, main character is a charming prince or a beautiful princess, which we talked about yesterday. Yeah. So you have you fall in love with each other, and they, you know, seek their, you know, they seek their beloved. They eventually they get together, they get married, whatever else happens, and they live a perfect life, right? So that's the first stage of a lot of cartoons that are directed towards children. And then comes the teenage rom-coms and the adult soaps that you have, moving on to the adult soaps, you know, which also portray a similar picture, right? If you think about it, you've got the high school girl and this boy, and then they've got their clan, their group, and then they eventually get together and they go out on a date and whatever else, and they get together, and finally the perfect couple are together. And obviously, you know, this is something that's being portrayed in these teenage rom-coms, and then you've the moving on to the higher you know, adult soap drama, you know, the comedy and whatever else that you want to see. People view these kind of soaps, and they are all portraying a similar picture of this romantic couple living a perfect life. Now, as viewers, we put ourselves in their shoes and wish to be that charming prince or that beautiful princess living a perfectly married life. I mean, you can understand this by asking, after watching, for example, Frozen, right? You ask the girls that, the little girls that you have, right? Ask them that, which character are you? And everyone would be like, I'm Elsa, right? Everyone would be like, I am this, I am that, yeah? So one of the two princesses you're going to be, right? And the boy will want to be the hunky chummy, the prince, whoever the hero is, and whatever else. Does it make sense? So everyone puts themselves in them shoes. Thus, we create this fantasy world with unrealistic expectations. That's the world we're creating for ourselves. Now, similarly, when we meet, you know, with prospective spouses, we create an imaginary picture of our spouse, because when we see them in their best, right? Everyone dresses up, everyone presents themselves in the best way, and whatever else, everyone behaves very, very, very friendly, smiles a lot, and everything, right? So at that first time, we have created an imaginary picture of how our spouse is in our brain. But they're realistically in real life, they're not like that. So our perfect married, we're living with them in our mind. We're living with them this perfectly married life. But we may even read into responses that they give. You know, they give certain responses, and we read into them, and we from that we've like built a vision for ourselves, which supports our thoughts that we had, right? And it gives us an understanding that this person's a very pious person, this person's a very this kind of person, whatever else, and it builds a picture for us that we already had, because we read into something that they've said, which they didn't mean it like that. They just said it. They just said it in passing conversation. They didn't mean it in that deep level of thought, the way you thought of it. So when we get married, what happens? Then we see the real spouse, yeah? And our spouses don't live up to our fantasy expectations. We feel broken and deceived. And that's happened to many people. Yeah, we feel that we've been deceived beforehand, and you told me this, you told me that. And then the partner's like, but I didn't say it like that. I meant it like this. You know, there's a misunderstanding here somewhere. So, you know, you're not realizing that we set ourselves up to fall in it. That's all we did. You set yourself up by having these big expectations. You set up yourself to eventually fall because you've gone so high. So the idea is then we must keep our expectations on our spouses minimal. Keep them to the minimal. And have high expectations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what we learn from our Sharia anyway, guys. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who, you know, as humans always let down, but Allah will never let us down. I mean, when did Allah ever let us down? Allah will never let you down, right? And humans constantly will let you down. So never hold expectation in humans. And this is what we learned from our pious predecessors. This is advice that was given to many from many pious predecessors to their own sons, to their own children, when they were getting married, that don't have hope in humans, have hope in the Khaliq, the creator, because he will never let you down and humans will always let you down. So having minimal expectation will help to not lead to much conflict, inshallah, because then when the expectation is not there and then the partner does something which you didn't expect them to do, then you would appreciate it more as well. So it'll help you in your life, inshallah.
Sure.
So this is the way I would say is a practical ways of solving a conflict is, firstly, don't have an expectation, and communication, like we said first, okay? So that's the way to solve. Yes. Question?
Yep, go ahead, Abu Bakr.
Mufti Sahib, just wanted to touch upon the expectations part. If the partner, started to decide to compare your married life and how things are going in your relationship with that spouse to maybe one of their friends who are having a really good time, how would you approach such a situation?
That again is a mentality problem, right? I think we've covered this previously, but the grass is never greener on the other side. In Islam, I say never, and it's a mirage at the end of the day. It looks like the person is having a good life and the rest of it. Yeah, maybe temporarily at that particular time when you look at them, they may be even having a good time. They may be going on a holiday, for example, and you've not gone on any holiday, and you're comparing yourself to another person like this. But remember, everybody has problems, and the problems they have, you probably won't be able to deal with, because at the end of the day, Allah puts us through certain problems which we have the tools to deal with and what we can deal with. So remember, there's always everybody has problems, and when they are putting a brave face on, for example, or when they're learning to ignore their problems and focus on the positives, then you will think that they're having a lovely life because they are focused on their positives and they're not focused on their negatives so much. But if you're focused on that one or two negatives that you have in your life, then you're only making your life miserable. And remember that by comparing yourself to others, you will never get anywhere. But when did it ever benefit by comparing yourself to somebody else? So, can everybody hear now?
Yes, clear. So
It's clear.
just slightly more. Yeah, now it's clear.
Now it's clear. So the point is that by comparing, you can never get anywhere in life. I mean, you would never compare. That's the golden rule we learn, even when you're doing, when you're trying to upbring your children, you never compare your children even to another child. Like, look at that child, because it just makes them feel as though that's the standard I need to get at. And that's not the way we work. That's not the way humans work. You're defeating them. You're already feeding them negativeness. You're already telling them that you're good for nothing. You never compare, because when you compare especially your life to somebody else's, as we know from a Shari'i stance as well, that you never compare to somebody who's above you, because then you will always be falling into ingratitude. You will never be thankful, because you will always think somebody else has got better than you. You always compare to somebody below you. And when you start doing that, then you're full of gratitude, isn't it? You're still of gratefulness. And that will make you obviously in a positive mindset, and then it'll enable you to be happier. So that's the Shari'i concept we learned as well, that compare with people below you, not people above you. And if you're constantly comparing with people above you, you're going to be negative. And this is very easy to be negative in life. Right. We'll talk about how to practically maybe do certain things as well as we go along. Third thing is, when we're discussing, empathize with your spouse. This empathy is so important, and try and understand from their point of view, isn't it? Like, for a moment, drop your guard, and stop thinking that I need to put my point of view across. I need to have my say. No, try to understand it from their point of view. You can't be telling me that they are insane and they're completely mad, that what they're saying I can't understand at all. Put yourself in their shoes and try to understand it from their point of view. And if you can do that will make a lot of your problems go away, because you can understand it from their point of view. And if you can, then sometimes you can add a bit of clarity And sometimes you can direct them towards towards why they're thinking in a certain way as well. So if you can't do that, then know that they must have a point. So if you can't put yourself in their shoes, right? You can't understand it from their point of view because you're like, I just don't understand them. Then at least know that they must have a point, right? They're not, like I said, they're not insane. They're not like completely insane, are they? So they are somebody who can think in a sane way. So when they're saying something, to them, it makes sense. To them, it must mean something. So they must have a point, right? So, it may be just that you're not explaining your point properly. You're not explaining yourself properly. They don't understand what you're trying to say, and that's why they're thinking in this way. So you have to understand this, right? Empathy is quite important when we're trying to solve a conflict, okay? Then selfless attitude. This all reflects what we mentioned above already, but having a selfless attitude, focus on fulfilling the rights due upon you. That's what we need to do. You understand? What are the rights that I need to fulfill? You understand? Not that you're demanding your rights that I want. What are you not doing for me? If everyone did this, then that's it. Your needs would be taken care of, right? If you come into your marriage thinking that I'm going to serve my partner, I'm going to make sure my partner is happy. That's my goal. Your goal is to make your partner happy, and both partners did that. Then that's it. All these problems will go away. There'll be no problems. So this is it, that we have to become selfless and focus on our partner's wishes and desires, not constantly trying to think of how can I ask a question that will get my partner to understand something from some. So this is not the point. The point is to try to have a focus on ourselves and how we can improve. Because remember, the point is this: look, you can never change another person as you can change yourself. You can change your own mindset, mentality. You can change anything. You can change even the way that you feel. Right now, you can smile if you wanted to. If I say smile, you can smile. Smile, yes, everyone can smile. You can be sad. You can do whatever you want. You can control that for yourself, but you can't control another person. You can tell them smile, but they may not want to smile. They may not do it. You can try your best, but you may still not achieve it. You may still not get that smile from them. So you can't control. The minute we understand this simple logic that you can't control other people as you can control yourself, so then there'll be no point in trying to change your partner to solve the conflict. Change yourself is the thing. Have a focus on yourself and work out what you can do to make things better. That's the idea here, isn't it? Lastly, not lastly, fifth point is the unity. Remember that both of you are on the same side. Don't think that it's an us and them mentality. Like a lot of people have that kind of mentality when sitting down to discuss things, that it's me against her or me against him. No, it's not like that. You're sitting down and it's a partnership. Remember, you're both on the same side here. You tow the same, the same. You row the boat in the same direction. Otherwise, you're going to have conflict. You have problems all the time. And don't think you're not fighting against one another. So the success of one is the success of the other. Understand that. So if I am successful, my partner's successful. My partner's successful, I am successful. That's the way you have to think. And the loss of one is a loss of the other. Similarly, when you're living with in-laws, because they're obviously playing a part then, so the in-laws are also now family. They're family. Don't think that they're not the family. Don't think that it's not my house, and still people are referring to, especially women, when they refer to the house of the in-laws, they don't refer to it as a home. They don't refer to it as, my house. They'll still refer to their parents' house that they came from as their own house. So this already mentality is not good. And, it's not, you've never accepted that house to be your house, that family to be your own family now. So we're taking a little while back here. Once, this happens generally on your first Eid, okay? Mark my words, it'll happen on your first Eid or second Eid. So if you've been spending your Eid in a certain way at your parents' home, I'm talking about for women generally. So you've been spending your Eid in a certain way. You go to a certain relative's house. You have a certain get together and whatever else, right? Now, that's the way you've been spending your Eids constantly. Now you get married and, you know, you're expected to stay at your in-laws' house because they're going to be certain guests that maybe come round and, you know, you're expected to stay there. But you want to, obviously, you have an idea that I want to finish everything off in the morning and by afternoon I want to be off already because we get together in our family. So this is what do you call, that first hurdle to try to get over. Understand that though it may be as, you know, you may have to delay certain things that you used to do previously. You may have to do it the next day. You may have to do it maybe hopefully in the evening, but you may have to do it the next day. You may have to do it the following day, even after that, because right now you've moved into another family now. You've adopted another family and you're part of that family. You have to do what the family, in order to make things smooth is what I'm saying. If you continue being in your own way and then there's certain problems about it, then it won't be plain sailing for you. Yes, you will have that little bit of fun on that Eid day maybe, but then you're going to have to face the music in essence, right? So you don't want to do that. So the idea here is what I'm trying to explain is that this adopting of the new family as a family now. So that's your family. The in-laws are your family now. So the way to do this is focus on the good they welcomed you with. So that, you know, I'm sure most of the, as long as you got married in the right background and with the right background in the right way, the most of the in-laws, they will be welcoming. They will be welcoming. They'll welcome you very nicely. They'll smile. They'll, you know, they will call you even beta and whatever else, right? They'll welcome you very nicely. So remember and focus on those good times, right? And people find it really difficult to even focus on good times. Many people have, you know, even when I've dealt with many couples and they say that I've never seen any good from them. You know, no, they never, I've spent 10 years with them and there's never been any good. So I generally tell the people then, okay, you know what, go back 1 week. I'll give you just 1 week. In 1 week, write down all the good that they do daily, understand, in the day. So write down everything good. So get a book, split the book up in 2 columns, two columns on a page, and write good and bad. So all the good, write down on one side. All the bad that happens, write on the other side. And you believe it or not, you will see, yeah, that the good will outweigh the bad. Obviously, hopefully, your relationship hasn't got so bad that there's so many bad things to then, you know, put onto the other side. But that's because you let that relationship between you and whoever it is that you're writing with deteriorate to that level, right? But generally speaking, humans, we're not going to be like constantly evil towards one another, right? But if it's deteriorated to that stage, and I'm not talking about doing this, yeah, I'm talking about between the spouse, for example, between husband and wife, it's a decent relationship, but you do have arguments here and there. So you have bad things, but you focus on those bad things. So you're a person like that. You when you focus on the bad, you think that is it. We've only ever done bad. We only ever argue. We don't do anything good. So then write it down, I say. Write it down. And you can't believe the amount of people I've told this to, and they come back after 1 week only, and they've actually got so many more good things than they have the bad things. And I said, that's it. You never focused on these good things. I'm talking about everything good. So like, he came home and did salam to me. That's good, isn't it? That's a positive. Write it down. You know, he smiled at me. It's a good. He bought things for me. You know, I'm talking about from a woman's perspective, because this generally, I'm afraid the culprit of this is generally the woman. So write it down. And then same thing with the in-laws. Understand and focus on the good that they welcomed you with, and make your husband's home a home, and keep your parents' home as your parents' home. No one's saying disown yourself from it, but it's your parents' home. Your home is now the one that you've moved to. So this is the unity I'm talking about. An us and them mentality needs to be removed from the head, and it can't be something which is, you know, I'm on one side and they're on the other side. No, it's together. You're in it together. It's a family thing now. And then lastly, I would say give it each other time and space. Yeah, this is important as well. Sometimes you need to give your partner some space. You need to give them a bit of time. Not just after an argument I'm talking about, just generally in life as well. So as one partner may require more time than the other, even after an argument, one partner may require more time than the other. So generally, men speaking, they'll get over a problem. I'm talking about generally, because obviously I know that sometimes some men are very sensitive. So it'll take time for them to get over something. But I'm talking about in a general sense, men are a bit more thick-skinned, and they can have an argument, and a couple of hours later they can be back to normal again. They can be, you know, and but the woman will probably be thinking, no, you can't behave like this now. You just had an argument with me. You just shouted at me. You just said something abusive towards me, and how can you just be, you know, all of a sudden just change your mood or something? I can't do that. So understand that your partner, whoever, I mean, sometimes it's the other way around. You know, sometimes some women, mashallah, get over it quite quickly, and some men are, you know, take a bit of time to get over something. But generally, is the other way around. So just understand who your partner is and how your partner deals with it, and give them that time. You know, allow them that time. That doesn't mean you allow them the time and ignore them. That's not the point here. Okay, you don't ignore them. You continue doing what you need to do, and you know, you do things to try to help them get over it. And you know, a little few hints and things that go along the way here and there, and you try to make up with them, and you allow them to get over it. You give them a bit of time and space. So that's important in terms of resolving and how to resolve a conflict. So this is the way to resolve conflicts, inshallah. People understand.
So some questions.
Yes.
How do you make your in-laws' house as you're doing in-laws when you do qadr? It would never be the same when you're hiding around. In your mother's house, you don't need to do that.
So how do you make your in-laws' house an in-laws' house when?
I think the question means, how do you make your in-laws' house your own house? When you do parda, it would never be the same when you're hiding around. In your mother's house, you don't need to do that.
So I guess you're saying you need to do parda if you've got brother-in-laws around, right?
Ji.
Yeah, then you're going to have to discuss that with your husband, isn't it? You're going to have to discuss that with your husband and tell him that, look, I'm uncomfortable and whatever else. And if it's something that you're doing, then maybe you need to think about how to resolve that in the best way. You're going to have to come up with something to solve the problem, because it's not very comfortable having a wife walk around the house with a niqab or parda on or whatever else, right?
Ji.
It's not a very practical thing to do. So yeah, maybe temporarily you might have no other choice, but it's not a very practical thing to do.
What if in-laws don't treat you like family and often get jealous when you do things with your husband, like go on holiday? They have one standard for their own daughters and another for their daughter-in-law.
Yeah, this is the thing, right? Now, double standards is widespread in our society, right? Widespread in our society. Now, we can't get rid of that in terms of, I mean, we can't escape from that, should I say. We want to try to get rid of it, but we can't escape from it. It's going to happen, right? Now, when you notice somebody behaving in a, you know, no doubt your in-laws, not all the time, but I'm saying generally again, but that will not treat you maybe the way that your own family may treat you. You may be able to get away with certain things that you could get away with at home, at your own house, that you can't get away with in in-laws. You can't do that. So then understand those things, right? And be on, you know, a better behavior, you can say. You be on sometimes your best behavior around your in-laws. Why? Just so that, because you know that will then be reciprocated on you, isn't it? You know, so sometimes you might be thinking that I've never made, I don't know, I never do this for my own parents. Why should I do this for my in-laws? The question is, no, you do it for your in-laws, even if you don't maybe have not done it for your parents. Why? Because you want to have a smoother relationship. So you want to make sure that you do certain things so that, especially those things that are expected of you. So you want to make sure you do those things to have a good relationship with them, because you know that then, inshallah, it will be reciprocated from them. There will be you know, some sort of appreciation. It's not going to be, you can't be telling me all of a sudden, like you're going to come at home and everything's smooth, but all of a sudden it's going to become like sour or something, just over nothing. Like they woke up today and said, that's it, I'm going to be mean to my daughter-in-law. It's not going to be like that. There's things that are going to build up to that, isn't it? There are going to be certain expectations that you're not living up to, certain things that are being done, which are not being done. And that's leading to maybe a slight, unrest or discomfort from their point of view. And then that's going to become manifest in their behavior towards you. So understand that. I mean, you can't be oblivious to that, and make your life easier, isn't it? By doing certain things that you need to do, and do them. If you do them, inshallah, it'll make your life easier. That's all I can say. I mean, that's the realistic thing to say. And what more can we say in that, really?
Next question, Mufsab. If both partners have temporarily separated, i.e. live in different households due to a conflict, how long would you recommend to reconcile? Is there a stipulated time period in the Sharia?
There's no stipulated time period. Okay, it depends on what you think is appropriate, but I would say not to go beyond a month. Yeah, roughly not to go beyond 1 month. Obviously, the indications we find from when Rasulullah was upset with his wives, and he stayed away from them for a month. So we can somewhat take an indication from that if you want to spend a bit of time separate, then maybe 1 month would be all right. But it shouldn't be something that you're resorting to all the time. You understand me? There should be, you don't just separate just like that. Something happens and you separate. No, there's steps, there's stages that you need to follow. There's a sequence that you follow. So, firstly, you would have a conversation about it. If that didn't work, then you escalate it to the next stage. Then you escalate it to, you escalate slowly to what we're trying to do here. We're trying to work how internally try to solve it with communication and everything else that we talked about. Then you try to get some external person involved, and then you separate bedding in the same house. You don't sleep in the same room, maybe not for long term. The key thing is, though, whatever you do, whenever there's some sort of solution, you're thinking you're giving a solution, right, by separating the bed or by even moving away, then what's important is you discussed that, or you actually mentioned that this is the reason. The reason must be made clear. Many people, they separate, and then I asked them, why have you separated? Oh, we had an argument in it, but why have you actually separated? Everyone has arguments, but why? I don't know. We're just not getting on right now. We're just having a rough patch, so we're just taking a bit of time. But nobody knows why they've actually, only one partner maybe knows. Pinpoint out the exact thing as to why, what made you do this, what makes you go through this step that you're separating your bed. Otherwise, what will happen is years will go by and you'll be sleeping in the same different bedroom. You'll be sleeping in separate beddings. Why? Because neither of you have actually addressed the problem, and you're just, both of you are being stubborn, playing a tug of war, and you're like, okay, let's see who gives way first. No one's going to get a solution there. So there needs to be an exact pinpointed out reason as to what needs to be done, and why you have chosen certain way of reprimand, you would say. If it be that you're separating for a while, like a month or so, then there needs to be clear reason as to why you separated and what needs to be done for that month. Otherwise, what will happen is you separate for a month and you'll come back for maybe 2-3 days or maybe a week. You'll be all right. I missed you and the rest of it, right? And we're sorry about whatever. And that's the I'm talking about the good cases, right? And then a week later, it'll become back to normal again. What are you going to do again? Are you going to just separate again? Constantly do this? It's not going to work. Or the realistic cases, you're going to come back and within a couple of hours or within a day or so, you're going to go back to normal again, because you never did it the way you should be doing it. That's important to understand as well. Are there 4 questions?
That was it, Muftī.
That was it. Okay. So now, roadmap to solving a conflict internally, because obviously we've discussed quite detailed how to solve the problem. I just want to give a roadmap of how to do this now. What do you do? So firstly, we said, is discuss and determine what the problem actually is. That's important. You have to pinpoint out what the problem actually is. Now, this demands that both parties are allowed to voice their viewpoint fully without interruption. Without any interruptions, you want the partner to be able to say what they want to say, and then you say what you want to say, and you want to determine what the actual problem is. Okay, that's important to discuss first. Then second, what would you do? Once you have the exactly pinpointed out the problem, focus on one specific, meaning focus on one problem and try to solve that problem now. So both parties should provide suggestions. Both of you, okay, let's come up with solutions. Okay, what do you think the solution should be? Okay, I think the solution should be this. Oh, well, I think the solution may be, what about if we did this, like this? both come up with a solution, how you think you can solve the problem. There must be something that you think that you can solve the problem by. So this is the way to do it. So you first determine problem, work out the exact problem, and focus on one problem, and then both of you give suggestions to solve that problem. The reason why I say both of you give suggestions, because then when you give a suggestion, it's going to be something that you realistically think you can do. Okay, and then come to a compromise on the best solution overall. Because you may be suggesting a solution, and your partner might be suggesting a solution that may be two different things, or things that then what you do is you have to come meet halfway in it. You have to meet halfway and come to some sort of compromise that what you think overall is the best thing to do. So that's the way to solve your problem. And then after a fortnight, I always say this, people think that they've done it here. Stage number 4, yeah, I've done it. No, this is important. That after a fortnight or so, revisit whether the solution is working. Because what you will find a lot of times is that you'll come up with a solution over here because that's the right thing to do, isn't it? You come up with a solution. But you came up with a solution that was unrealistic. It was unrealistic, the solution. So what's happening is you kept up for it for a day or two, but then you are unable to keep up with it. So a week or two passes and you're not actually doing what you said you would do. So what you need to do is have a review time. So after a fortnight, revisit whether the solution is working. If yes, then show appreciation. Whichever partner it's happening for, meaning the other partner's making an effort, then show appreciation. What that will do is encourage the partner to continue, that your efforts are not going without being noticed. So your efforts are being noticed, and I appreciate what you're doing. You've made change. I can see that the change has been made, and encouraging this way. I'm really happy that this change has been made, and whatever you want to say, but show an appreciation. So this will encourage the partner to continue. Is that making sense? So because the first 2 weeks or so, or first month, I would say, is critical. Is critical time, because that's the time your partner is trying to make a change. And if they're trying to make a change, remember, change is never easy for anybody. So if they're trying to make a change, you have to help them in that change. Once a month or two passes and they've made that change, it becomes natural to them now. So it becomes it becomes part of their nature. So when it's become part of their nature, then that's it. It may be whatever. It may be something like you don't like the way your partner speaks. They speak in a very harsh tone. You want them to dim down the way they speak, maybe a bit more a softer approach. So then if they're making that effort, recognize that effort. But after a month or two, it'll become natural to them. That's the idea we're talking about here. So appreciation is very important. And if it's not working, if after 2 weeks you notice that it's not working, it's not happening, then that means it was unrealistic. It's not happening. So rethink the solution. Think of something else. So this is important to do here. So this last point, a very practical point, very important to be on this roadmap of trying to solve a solution. Otherwise, you're not going to get to any solution. Everybody understands this?
Yes, Muftī.
Are there questions or anything?
No questions.
Right. Now, again, how to solve the conflict, but this time externally. Because many times what will happen is, if the conflict has reached such a stage where you can't come up with a solution between yourselves, you've tried your best, you've done everything that we talked about before, you've done that roadmap, you've revisited 2 weeks later, and you've come up with another solution, but it's still not working. You revisit another 2 weeks later, it's still not working, nothing's happening. Then you will need to involve an external person to try to bring some sort of solution. Sometimes it takes for somebody else from outside to say something that makes the person realize that, I'm probably wrong here. Okay? It's very difficult to understand that you're wrong from your partner. Okay? Your partner, you're not going to take from your partner saying that you're wrong in this. It's difficult. It's not easy. So sometimes, yes, you need an external person to tell you that you're wrong, or maybe you need to point certain things out. And many times, you don't even need the external person to say it. You just need to say it out loud to the external person. And I can tell you the amount of times that people tell me certain things that they're going through. And whilst they're speaking, by the end of what they've told me, They've in fact themselves worked out the solution themselves. They say, oh, actually, you know what? I know what the solution to this actually is. This is because they've now said it out loud to somebody. They've explained it to somebody. By explaining it to somebody, they're going to have to say it all out loud. And by doing that, you get to some sort of a clearer thinking. They've worked out, you know, all that confusion in the head has been now cleared. So yes, you need to sometimes involve an external person. When you involve an external person, ensure that the external person is not a family member. I mentioned this yesterday, but not a family member or friend. Don't involve a family member or friend. It just doesn't work, because there's naturally going to be bias from a family member. It doesn't matter how impartial the family member is. You know, you might say that my family member, no, they're very impartial, they're very just, they're very this, they're very that. It just doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't work, because the partner will always feel that you know, there was bias, there was some sort of bias, you know. So this can lead to claims of bias, and hence the problem will never get solved. You will never solve your problem. So it often exacerbates the problem, makes the problem even more, and makes a issue become even more, because you think you've been to somebody external, but he's not solved the problem. So marriage problems are a common occurrence. It's like, it's not something that happens only for Muslims. It happens for everybody in the world. Like, everybody goes through marriage problems, right? And you know, taking the matter to an external person is not a matter to be ashamed of. It's not something like, you know, this is something that men find really struggling to get over. Like, how can I come to somebody else and explain my, you know, problems to them? I'm embarrassed, I'm ashamed, and the rest of it. No, it's nothing to be ashamed and embarrassed about. The person you're mentioning problems to is probably going through problems themselves that they've been through, maybe, or whatever else. So it's not like it's something alien to them, like as though, you know, you're the only one going through certain problems or something. It's nothing to be embarrassed about. And obviously, and you know, can prevent future problems. You know, it can further, you know, further problems in the future can be solved, and you know, you can bring to some sort of resolution when you come to this external person, inshallah. Okay.
Question.
Yes.
How would you approach a situation where your partner has acted hastily and involved the mother-in-law, and now a small issue has been made into a more bigger one, or a small issue has been made to look more bigger than what it actually is, and you're being victimized by both the partner and the mother-in-law?
Yeah, so you're going to have to make sure that your partner, you sit down nicely, amicably, you know, not trying to beat down on your partner, but explain to them that, look, this is what could have happened. This was the, you know, this was the problem that you're saying. And if we spoke about the problem, and we could have done this solution. But now, obviously, by you involving the mother, your own mother, then this is what's happened now, and it's become a bigger problem that we're going to have to deal with now. And what happens is, what people need to understand, that if you make problems bigger than they are, then it's only so long. So, like the saying goes, obviously, like the boy that cried wolf, yeah, that when a problem actually occurs, then people are just going to say, oh, there we go again, another problem for them. So how many times are you going to keep mentioning your problems to people, like constantly, understanding it, that, you know, try solve the problem, right, yourselves if you can. But what men need to understand as well on that, yeah, it's a two-way thing, isn't it? It takes two hands to clap. But what men need to understand on this one is that if you don't want her to go to external, you know, to get involved, mother-in-law, whatever you're saying is, then when you realize that there's a problem, solve it, isn't it? Solve it, don't ignore it. Okay, give her the satisfaction, give her closure. If you're not giving that, then she's going to go to somebody. And most likely, she's going to go to her mother, because her mother will ask her after a week or two, or after months or whatever, how is it going? Everything okay? And at that time, this fresh incident that's happened to her, she will say it to her mother, because her mother's asking her. So then, naturally, her mother will feel like defending her own, right? It's going to be a natural feeling that my daughter's being treated in this way, and she's far away from me. How can I help her? So she's going to tell her things. So it's just a thing that's going to happen. And if you don't want that to happen, then you make sure you solve the problem. Solve the problem, give her closure, give her the satisfaction that, yeah, we've solved the problem. And in fact, I don't need to go to anybody else, because when I mention the problem to my husband, then we discuss it, and he does take it on board, and we come to a solution. So she will understand that. She's not going to go around spreading your problem. If you ignore problems, then she will mention to others. Then there's only one, both of you are to blame in this, isn't it? If it becomes a bigger problem than you need it to be.
Can't each side from both spouses' family come and speak, so it won't be bias, rather than getting an outside person?
It doesn't work. You can try that, and let me know if it works. I'm telling you that it won't work. Okay, what will happen is both families will get involved, and then egos will get involved, because what will happen is they will come to a point where they won't be able to, either both parties are thinking that they are the bigger party here, they've got leverage and whatever else. Both parties will be thinking that, or one party will be madloom, one party will be oppressed, thinking that we have to just comply to everything they say in it. You understand me? So what will happen is they will never come to a solution. They won't come to a solution to just comply, and then what will happen? They'll just be bad mouthing them behind their back. And if it gets to a degree where problems start compounding, then I've dealt with multiple cases. I can't tell you amount of multiple cases like this, multiple cases where families, both parties did get involved like this. And then it became a matter of izzah. It became a matter of their pride, their family pride. And then what happens? They tell their daughter that you're not going back to that house anymore. And the daughter's like, but me and him have solved our problem. I'm going back to him. And they're like, if you go back there, you are not our daughter anymore. Yeah, so that's it. It's a matter of there is that, isn't it, in society, that how can we're not stooping that low to them. We're not going to do this. No, it's not going to happen over our dead body. And now they want to be together, the husband and wife. They've resolved their problem. It's been a couple of months. They've had time to cool down and everything, but their families are not allowing it anymore. Or it happens the other way around, which many times it happens with where the boy's family, they're saying that if you want to be with her, you go, you're not our son anymore. You find your own house, you find your everything else your own, and you go if you want to go. But we don't want anything to do with that girl because she disrespected us, or her parents disrespected us. Tell their parents to phone and say sorry to us first. And their parents are going to do that. So this is a very touchy situation that if you want to involve families, you're going to get more problems, put it that way. So don't involve families. You understand? You involve external people, because external people have nothing else. They have nothing in it. They got nothing in it but to try to solve your problem. They got nothing else in it. When you involve families, there's too many other ingredients there, too many things involved, and your solution may never come out. Does that make sense? So the sensible thing is never to involve family.
Also, there's another question. How would you deal with this in light of the advice of the Quran? فَبَعَثُوا حَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهِ وَحَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهَا.
That's to try to solve if there's been like you're thinking of divorce and whatever else. Yes. So when the matter does become more serious, then you do involve family, obviously, right? So let's say you're now thinking of divorce, right? That we're going to split up. Now you're not going to just do it without the involvement of your family and just externally deal with it, right? Externally deal with, I gave a divorce, and you turned up home and said, I've been divorced, by the way. Now, when did this happen? How come we didn't know? Does it make sense? So when the matter does become a bit more serious, when you're thinking of actually separating and everything else, then the steps that you need to take, that first step, which is that you separate. And once you've separated for a month and you've sent her away off to her own parents' home for a month, then it's not just going to be a holiday for a month, is it? They're going to realize that something's wrong. So then you're going to start to solve the problem with family becoming a bit more involved. So that's when you've done all of these other steps I'm talking about. You've tried your external, you've tried everything else. Then you go to that فَبَعَثُوا حَكَمًا مِنْ أَهْلِهِ. Yes? You don't jump to that step first.
How can you lower expectations and not lose confidence in your spouse or even respect for them? For example, he's always harsh and does not change even though there is a dialogue.
Yeah, so sometimes, I mean, it's hard to let go of certain, so sometimes it's going to have to be acceptance, or there's going to have to be other things that you're going to have to try in it. If something's not working, you're going to have to try other things, right? And something will, inshallah, work in it. This is a matter of finding that thing that works. There's so many things that comes to mind right now. But if I start going on to that, it's gonna go off onto not allowing us to finish our slides. But inshallah, your question will be somewhat covered in some of the coming slides. Is that okay? If it's not, by the end of it in the Q&A, you can ask.
Inshallah. Regarding external people, the person asked Muftī Sahib, who should these external people be exactly?
Yeah, so that's what I'm doing now. Yeah, so ensure that you seek a trained and recommended marriage counselor, is why I say, okay. And there's some things on the last slide that we've got. There's some people there, and I'm sure that you can find somebody who's trained. But you don't want to just go to any old person, because some people actually make the problem greater than it actually is. So you want to go through somebody who's trained in counseling and marriage counseling, some sort of training, or at least a lot of experience. If they've not got training, then a lot of experience. They've got they're recommended through word of mouth. They've solved problems for other people, and it's worked for other people. Then yeah, you go to them. You understand? There's plenty of people like that around. So that's that in terms of who to go to. Don't just go to any old person. Okay. Don't just go to any scholar, is what I mean. Okay, just because they're a scholar doesn't mean that they'll be able to solve your problem. Because there's many problems that I've dealt with, which other scholars they've went to before, and they've ruined it. The scholars actually ruined it because they told them to do certain things, which actually created more problems between the two of them. You can't tell them to do certain things. Anyway, this is the most important slide, I would say, when it comes to conflict resolution. Everybody must really learn this by heart and understand this, right? This is the most important. It's the self-reflection and resolution. So, when we're saying that you're going to get problems in your married life, yeah, and that will happen. This is inevitable. But how do you minimize the problems is what I'm looking at here, okay? How do you make sure that you are on this road to happily married life? Yes? You're not going to constantly live a life where you're constantly every day, every 2 days, every week dealing with a problem, and there's new problems arising every time. That's not a healthy marriage. A healthy marriage, like I said, I gave you understanding of, is that you're bettering each other, you're improving each other, and you're on this pathway from that bumpy, rocky ride to becoming a smooth road ahead of you. And you occasionally get a little bump here and there, but you can deal with it because you know how to deal with it. So this is what's going to add to that, the self-reflection and resolution. So what you do is that you have to then, after you've had this conversation, you had a conversation with your partner, you've tried to solve the problem, you've done this, you've done that, right? So this is the process. This is probably the most important part of conflict resolution, that after coming to a resolution, self-reflect. You have to reflect as to what caused the problem in the first place. You have to do that yourself, okay? Spend a bit of time alone and think what caused this problem, whenever it may be, you understand me? And then think about how to mitigate those factors in the future. Why did this problem happen? It's because I said this. I said this word, she doesn't like this word. Or I gave this comment and he doesn't like that comment. Whatever it may have been, reflect as to what caused that problem, the root of that problem. And if you do that, what will happen in the future? There will be less problems to deal with. You won't have so many problems because you've reflected as to the causes of the problems. And there are only a few causes. If you're good at getting to the root, there can only be a few causes to problem, because we are all, our temperaments are in a certain way. Every human has their temperaments in a certain way. Something that gets me annoyed might not get somebody else annoyed. You understand me? So it's something that you have to learn, that there's only certain things that will get somebody annoyed, or certain things that will get the person, upset or something. So you have to get down to the roots of those things. Okay. If you go to the roots, there can only be a certain amount. Okay. Now, it may have been something as simple as, being, dismissive of the opinion of your spouse. So you dismissed their opinion completely, and that made them feel underappreciated. That made them feel as though they're not worth anything. They're not, they have no positioning, no standing in this relationship. And many times women will complain of this, but that's because you're dismissing her opinion. You're giving it no thought. You're not even acknowledging the opinion. You're just making it look like, no, you don't know anything. I'm the person. I'm the clever one in this. You never do that. Never dismiss the opinion of a partner in this way, because it just makes them feel underappreciated, and then you'll create problems like this, because then they'll feel as though they're not appreciated by you. So this is something that you need to pay attention to, reflect as to what's causing your problems. And self-reflection will eventually reduce the frequency of problems. Hence, it will, it's a vital step which must be implemented. If you want a better life, you must self-reflect. If you do not reflect, you're just going to have constantly problems, new problems every day. And then you're going to be telling me that I'm going to be, spending so much time. We're always spending time. It's an example of sinning and tawbah, isn't it? So like we sin, you sin, and what do? You do tawbah after it, right? That's our sharia, you do tawbah. But is it that we just keep doing tawbah and we never reflect as to what made me do that sin? Why is it that I'm doing this particular sin? Constantly I'm doing this sin. We have to reflect, don't we? And that's part of our tawbah as well, that we want to give up the means of those sins. That what is leading me to this sin? This is the thing that's leading me to that sin. So I want to completely eradicate that from my life. And if I reflect in that manner, that means the sins here will reduce. These sins will reduce. Does that make sense? So sinning and then followed by tawbah doesn't mean that you just carry on sinning and carry on doing tawbah. Yes, Allah is forgiving, no doubt, but we have to reflect. We have to reflect and go down to the root cause of what's making us do those sins. This is very important. So this is the same concept here. The concept, that shari'i concept, that here is what I'm talking about here. When we have had an argument or something, some disagreement or whatever's happened, you have to yourself afterwards sit down and think and reflect, which will then, inshallah, prevent or stop those problems occurring in the future. Okay. Now, the last solution, you've tried everything above, I've said. Everything above has been tried. You've done it. The last solution is then to separate and then to go into divorce. Now, because we did say we're going to mention a few things about divorce, that's why I'm just going to mention a few things. I'm not going to go too much detail into it. But so after exploring all options, to reconcile and solve, to resolve the problem, the final solution would be to then dissolve the marriage by divorce. There's no other solution. You have nothing else. And although this seems like running away from the issue, and it may seem as though you're not trying to, if somebody's going to say that, am I being disobedient to Allah? Allah put me in this, in this marriage, and I'm divorcing and the rest of it. No, it's not. The reality is that divorce is the final stage of conflict resolution. That's the reality. And though it's not a stage that anyone wants to get to, inshallah, but it's the final solution. And sometimes resorting to this step when you would resort to this step when other options have failed, everything else has failed. Now, divorce in Islam doesn't carry the same stigma that it does culturally. Stigma in culturally, if you're divorced, then it's a bad thing, isn't it? Like you've been divorced, like you've gone through a divorce. Culturally, is something very bad. But that comes from a background of marriage is seen to be something which is lifelong. You get married to them and you're with that person for 7 generations, isn't it? 7 reincarnations from our Indian subcontinent. You can say that, understanding that you are with your partner not only in this life but for the rest of your other reincarnated lives, you would say. Yes. So that's where it comes from culturally, that you can never divorce, because once you're bound, and that's it. Till death do you apart, isn't it? And you're never going to be apart. So that's the way. But in Islam, it's not like that. We've got plenty of examples of, like in the Quran, we have an example of where Zayd, radiallahu anhu, Zayd bin Harith, he divorced his wife, Zaynab bin Jahsh, and eventually Prophet ﷺ married Zaynab bin Jahsh after. So he divorced her, she asked for a divorce, and they got divorced. There's many other occasions as well. There was another occasion of another Zaynab as well, which she had been divorced from a previous husband. She got married to a new husband who she was not happy with, and she came to Prophet ﷺ and she wanted a divorce from her second husband to go back to her first husband, in fact. So she came in front of Sahaba, in front of Rasulullah to ask for this, can I go back to my first husband? So there was this environment in the time of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum where they were getting married to women who were divorced. There was many other occasions as well, not just divorced, but widows. And Rasulullah, in fact, many of his wives were widows and divorcees. So it's not something that held, the stigma in Islam. Yes, divorce is not something light, and as we know, it's like the most detestable things out of the things that has been made halal by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But it's a way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made an outlet for our ummah. It's a mercy for this ummah. Some people have mentioned that the other other shariats previous to us, they didn't have this outlet. They didn't have this outlet of divorce, and they literally had till death do us apart. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had mercy on this nation, and He allowed a way out for us. So it's not something that you need to think of it like that. Even the daughters of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Kulthum and Ruqayya, were divorced by their husbands, and then eventually they were married to Uthman radiallahu anhu. So Uthman radiallahu anhu, being such a wonderful person, he married 2 divorcees. Both his wives were one after the other. They were obviously divorcees. So it's not something like, if you're pious, then you can't get divorced or something. No, are you claiming to be more pious than these individuals that we've had in history or something, than the Sahaba radiallahu anhum? No. So it's not that you can't resort to this, but I'm not trying to encourage it as well. We have to balance it. This is the last resort. That's what we're saying. Okay, but it's something that sometimes you need to resort to because it's just not getting on. So sometimes, in many cases, it is better for a couple to get divorced amicably than carry on living a marriage, where both partners are always arguing and they feel they just don't get on. It's just, they're just unhappy with each other. So such a marriage obviously has long-term, long-lasting effects, negative impacts on the children as well. If you've got children, then you're going to have negative effects on your children, because they're going to see that this is how a marriage is, how my parents are living, constantly at each other, constantly, arguing and the rest of it. And that's not how you want your children to grow up. So when divorce is conducted, so that's very important, it should be done on good terms. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Allah says that divorce is twice. So you divorced once and then you divorced the second time. So once you've divorced a second time, Allah says, then either keep her in an acceptable manner with goodness, or release her with kindness. Release her, let her go with kindness. So this is important, very important, that if you do release her, then release her with kindness. And in fact, in our Sharia, we also have a gift that is to be given to her, a parting gift to be given to her once you've divorced her. And so divorce is not something which is meant to be given in the way that nowadays is being given. Now, the appropriate way to give divorce is to give divorce to the wife once, just once, one divorce, while she is in her period of purity. While she's in the purity, not during her cycle. So during the time when she is pure, without having had any relations with her in that period. In that meaning, in that time of purity. So you've not had any sort of relations with her, meaning, any sort of relations that husband and wife would have, these kind of relations with her, and then you divorce her in that state. That would be the way once you give her. And thereafter, you wait it out for the rest of her waiting period. She's now in her iddah, in her waiting period, without approaching her, without, doing anything. So you leave her to it. And this will lead to a dissolution of the marriage. This will lead to the marriage then becoming an irrevocably, they're going to become separated. So that's the way to give the divorce. Now, you will only need to say the divorce once for it to occur. There's a very big misconception of people that they think they need to say it 3 times. You do not need to say it 3 times. You only ever need to say it once for it to occur. And this also leaves the door open. This is the best way, because this leaves the door open. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions as well that it's better that you will not have regret later as well. So he leaves the door open for a couple to get back together in the future sometime if they want to get back together. And I can't tell you the amount of people that actually do this. That after a year or so, they realize that, I do miss my partner so much, and a year, say, later, they want to get back together again. And you know, I've been involved in the liaison, in the mediation between the two, and I was thinking that there's no way that they're going to get back together. And the amount of bitterness between the two of them, the things that were said, the things that were done, everything. But a year later, they want to get back together again. And they're phoning me that, can we get back together again? I'm like, well, are you sure? Are you sure you want to get back together again? And they're like, yeah, we're changed. You know, we realize that we do miss each other, and we do love each other, the rest of it. So sometimes you get back together again. But at that time when you're giving the divorce and whatever, you know, things, emotions are running high, and you probably at each other's throats so much that you're not going to think that you want to ever get back together again. But this is what the Quran mentions, so we leave it like that. Now, pronouncing divorce 3 times will lead to an irrevocable divorce. It will lead to a completely marriage being completely sealed and done and dusted. So if you give divorce 3 times, whereby the couple will only ever get back together again after the wife has married and consummated with another. So she's got married with somebody else, she consummated marriage with somebody else as well. And then if she does happen to get divorced from that new marriage, then only will this first husband be able to marry her again. So why give the 3 divorces in one go? This is completely and utterly wrong to give 3 divorces like this. You know, if it was a Sharia state as well, that people have mentioned that people should be, some scholars have even called for people to be lashed, men to be lashed for giving 3 divorces in one go like this. That's how wrong it is in our Sharia. But never, capital letters, and never give 3 divorces in one go. And never give divorce whilst angry or whilst arguing or angry. Never do it. Just never do it. What I tell couples when they get married is that, divorce, this word divorce, just take it out of your dictionary. Imagine it doesn't exist. The word talaq, the word divorce, just take it out of your vocabulary. Just never resort to it. Because when you're angry, you will say all the hurtful things. You will try to pull everything out. So if divorce is there constantly in your mind, you're going to end up saying it. Okay, so just take it out of your dictionary, take it out of your vocabulary. Just know that you can never go that way. You can never go there. So divorce is not something to be given at a time of angry. It's when you're understanding that you just can't get on. You've discussed, you've done everything that we've talked about before, and then you've amicably come to a decision that, you know what, it's probably best that we separate. Lastly, we have these slides: common grievances of men, and then we have later common grievances of women. So So for example, the common grievances of men is that she thinks that I can read her mind. I mean, this is the reason why I put it here, so that women can understand how a man would have problems, general problems. If there's things that people want to add to later on, they can let me know. But this is a common complaint that men have, that she thinks that I can read her mind. So the way to solve the problem is to verbalize how you are feeling, and how you want him, how you liked him to respond or to behave. Verbalize it. Tell him that, you know what, rather than just giving hints, or rather than just saying, something that you expect him to do, you rather just say it. Just say it. Just tell him that, you know what, I would like for you to buy me this, or I would like this to happen, whatever else. Just say it to him straight up, rather than being all round the bush about it. Then another one is she complains and nags all day. She nags all day, all along. She just carries on nagging and complaining all day. So the solution, we need to count our blessings. Focus on the good, like we mentioned. And when you have a valid complaint, then choose the right time to make that complaint. Not immediately when he comes home. So he comes home, the first thing you're at it. You're like already telling him. It's like he's gonna immediately think that, why did I even come home? And then there's that common complaint of women, which is that he doesn't come home until late. Then you have to think about why that is. So I'm sure people understand. I'm not going to go through details in this because we're already out of time, and I want to spend some time in question and answers. I'm just going to go through. I'm sure people understand because certain things we've already talked about. So another complaint that men have is that she always talks about the past, even if the issue has been dealt with. So learn to truly forgive and forget. That's important. We have to learn to not just forgive, but we have to forget as well. That's important, yeah? And that's the way that we want Allah to deal with us. So why should we not deal with others in that way? As keeping hatred in the heart is like poison. it hurts the one that festers it. So it's your festering that you're saying, I can forgive, but I can't forget. And there's a common sentence that women mention, yeah? So that I can't forget. But then you're just keeping that poison within you, and it's going to harm you one day. So just don't do it. It's not worth it. She always wants things. She just wants constantly. She wants things. Yeah. So I would say, this is a misconception, and I'm sure women will say yes to this. That this is a misconception. Men think this, that she always wants things. She wants me to buy her things. It's expensive to keep her, but it's not like that. It's a misconception from men that women don't always want gifts. They don't want physical possession all the time. Okay, it's nice sometimes to have something, but often it's more, I would say, more often it's the kind words, the gestures that go, that can go further. And they often, they appreciate the thought more than the actual gift. It's the thought that women have more than the gift it is there. It's because, because of this, they are commonly misunderstood. So it's the appreciation they have towards the actual thought of the gift and the actual gift itself. So you could sometimes make make something, make an origami flower or something and give it to her. That didn't cost you anything. And she would appreciate more than you having gone to a supermarket and bought some flowers for her. And I don't know if women would say yes to this, but I presume from my experience of what I've asked women of, they say yes to this, that this is something that I would think, yeah, definitely, it's the thought that counts more than anything, isn't it? Yeah, inshallah, mashallah, there are some who are saying yes to this. So this is a misconception from men. Don't think that you always have to buy her a gift. It can be something free, just send a text message saying I love you, that would be enough. It's just that thought. You're on your way home and you came across outside in your garden, there's some daffodils growing, and you pulled one out and you gave it to her when you came home. Just the thought that counts. So yeah, she wants things, but it's the why she wants things is because she wants to know that you've been thinking of her. She wants to know that she's the queen of your mind, in essence, right? So that's why you think that, men think that. Anyway, second one is that, or the last one here on this page, is that she doesn't dress up for me anymore. Yeah, women, they like to dress up. We know that women like to dress up, right? Now, if your wife is not dressing up for you, then you will need to determine why she's not dressing up for you. Many times it's that at the beginning of marriage, she did used to dress up. So it may be because you are not noticing her, and you're not complimenting her, you're not appreciating her efforts. So she's been, she's waiting that my husband's going to come home at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, and maybe an hour or two before that, she's been dressing up. She's been, picking which clothes to wear, and she's making an effort. She does everything, and she even put the nice perfume on that you liked and everything. But you come home and you're tired, and you just like, sit on the sofa, and you never took not even single notice of how she is. You're like, you didn't notice anything. Oh, yeah, you look nice today. That's it. That's the best comment that you'll get. That's it. You look nice today. That's it. Nothing else. And she'll think that I made an hour of effort. Yeah. Sometimes she may have had to even walk down to the high street to maybe buy something just to make the outfit look whatever else. And there's no appreciation for that effort that she's made. And obviously she's going to think that there's no point. There's no point in making the effort. I might as well just carry on in my pajamas, and he'll be the same. And I'm sure women will say this, that this is very true. Huh? So this is another complaint that men have, I'm saying. But that complaint, then you need to think about why that is. Compliment her when she makes an effort for you. Understand? And then you will have the wife dressing up for you, and not just dressing up when she's going out. So yeah, that's a complaint. So yeah, that complaint, inshallah, has been addressed as well. Another common grievance of men is she thinks money grows on trees. Huh? Everyone's going to laugh at that one. Eh? She thinks money grows on trees, and men are going to be nodding their head yes. So what pages about expenses? Yeah. So we've already talked quite in detail about expenses, but come to a fair agreement on finances.
Sorry. The first part of that just broke off the sound.
The first part of this one, yeah. So come to a fair agreement, I say, yes. So she thinks money grows on trees is the common grievance of men, but we want to come to some sort of solution to this for men and women, both husband and wife, to come to some sort of fair agreement on finances and keep within those limits. As long as this is maintained, then, you know, no partner should deem the other one stingy or loose-handed. Either way, you know, that's not the way to then deem your partner to be. And you know, the other complaint along these lines is she regards the money I earn as our money, but hers as hers only. And we've discussed this before in the finances, that there's no doubt that it is upon the husband to support the family financially. There's no doubt about that, right? But however, one should be wary of making the husband feel underappreciated. Don't do this from women's perspective, or don't make him feel underappreciated for this effort. Yes, don't make it feel as though you have to do it anyway. Yeah, you have to, that's your responsibility anyway. No, even though it's expected, make it understood that, yeah, he's earning and he's doing his duty, he's doing his part, and make him feel appreciated for this. This will make it much better for you, and make him feel like giving you more than feeling as though he's not doing enough. So this is just as the wife would want the husband to appreciate her fulfilling her efforts, even, you know, if she's fulfilling her efforts and she's fulfilling her duties, even though they're expected of her, right? Then the wife still expects the husband to appreciate that. So in the same way, the wife should appreciate the husband's efforts as well, and him fulfilling his duties. This statement can be, you know, perceived as, you know, when you make a statement like this, you know, our money, my money, when you say that, yeah, this can be perceived as stemming from greed and selfishness. So she's just greedy, she's just selfish. That's what he'll say. Why? Because she regards her money as hers. Don't say this then. Either say that it is, you know, say that it's his money, and, you know, say that it's his. And so his money is his and your money is yours, or say both our money is as ours. And if you say it like that, then things will go down much easier. And lastly on this is that she always wants expensive things. Again, I would say misconception that she doesn't always want expensive things, but a balanced approach needs to be adopted when purchasing items. You know, many women feel that their husband always goes for the cheaper thing. You know, that men always go for the cheap item, and the man feels the opposite, that the wife always goes for the most expensive thing, right? So the solution that I would say is for the husband to understand that the household items which the wife may regularly use, you know, if she's the one that's using those items, for example, then you know, then it should be of good quality, a good enough quality that it makes her life easier, not to worry about, you know, constantly breaking down. You know, in the long run, obviously this will even save them money on replacements and, you know, repairs all the time if they buy a cheaper one. So, you know, sometimes it might be a little bit worth it to buy that expensive thing to keep her happy as well, because she's going to be, most of the times, you would say regularly, she's going to be using something like this. So if she's using an iron, for example, and she wants something a bit more expensive, then it's something that she's going to be using to iron your clothes with anyway, right? So why not buy her that little bit more expensive that she can make her life easier for her? I'm just giving an example there, not to say that women should be ironing here, okay? Don't take it in the wrong way. I'm just talking in a general way here, okay? Now, if the item is currently out of budget, so this is a practical solution, that if something is currently out of budget, the man says that, you know what, we can't afford that, then save up for it. I say, save up for it and say, okay, you know what, we can't afford it this month, but okay, we'll save £50 this month, for example. Next month we can save another £20, and then next month we can save another 30, 40, and then in 6 months' time, we'll have that item. And make a plan like that. So I'm sure that any wife will be more than happy that she will wait for a little while, but for the item that she wants. Okay, so she'll wait for a little while, save up for it, no problem, and have a plan, because then that will make the wife feel appreciated and cared for. So that's important, that work for a practical solution there then. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah, so these last ones are a bit more like very practical in terms of what we've talked about all across above already. So another grievance that men have is she uses intimacy as a level tool, as a weapon against me. That's what we talked about previously as well. And in a nutshell, they say the husband needs to understand that immediately after an argument may not be the most appropriate time for intimacy. as she may require more time. So give her a bit of space, give her a bit of time. And then the wife, from the wife's perspective, should know that although it may make her feel dominant in a short term, make her feel dominant that she's able to say no to him, yes, but using intimacy as a weapon after a dispute will never, I say never, will solve your problem. It will never solve the issue. Will it ever solve the issue? It won't. It will only exacerbate the problem. It'll just make the problem a bit more. That's what it'll be. It's just going to compound the problem to be something that maybe you can't deal with after. So although it may, prevent him from coming to her in the future, it may, although this may not be justified, he may go to some other means or whatever, or lead him to other avenues and everything else, right? But we're not trying to justify that, but we're just trying to show that what will practically, realistically happen. So intimacy, remember, intimacy is a way of displaying love for the partner. So it's the way that you will show your love for your partner, and it can often help to alleviate an argument as well, because things, you will notice this, that things will go away because of this. So intimacy is not a way for him to get his back on you. Is a way of actually him showing and appreciating you. So you don't want to be rejecting that appreciation or that show of love that he is doing. He's displaying his love to you, and is not just simply fulfilling a animalistic desire, but he's trying to display how much he loves you. And if you reject that, then remember, it's very hurtful to reject the love that somebody shows to you. So then, because the time will come when they will no longer show that love to you then. So this is important to understand. Now, she accuses another common grievance is that she accuses based on assumption, and she doesn't trust me. So just on nothing, right? There's nothing there, and she just puts a whole story in place, and she's accusing me all sorts of things. So remember, one thing is making baseless assumptions. Obviously, is discouraged from the Quran we have already, but baseless assumptions about your husband can either lead the husband to hiding matters from the wife, and I'm sure nobody wants that, right? You don't want things to be hidden from you. You want to know everything, right? So either he'll hide things, because he will continue doing what he's doing. He'll hide things from you, as obviously he feels that she won't be able to handle the matter, so that he'll just hide it. And he will start then, and start to doubt me. He's going to think that she's going to doubt me, so he's going to hide things. Or in certain cases, it may even lead to the husband actually carrying out that which he's accused of. So if he's being accused of something, then he's going to think that, I'm being accused of this without having done it, so I might as well do it now. And, people actually say these things, and they actually end up doing things, not to justify it, but I'm just saying that it ends up in both cases, you're at loss. So just don't do these assumptions and these, these accusations based on assumption. So a certain level of trust is required. That's the solution. You need to have a certain level of trust for a marriage to flourish. Yeah. The default assumption should be that the spouse is trustworthy and honest, unless there's evidence to prove otherwise. And there should be evidence, not just assumption I'm talking about, right? So be careful in the amount of assumption that we make, and we don't start jumping to conclusions. And lastly, I would say the biggest grievance of men is she's very sharp-tongued. Okay, she's loose on her tongue, and she's very harsh. So this is a major issue, I think, which majority of marriages go through, which can destroy marriages. A woman who cannot control her tongue will lose the love and respect from her husband. It's as simple as that. Love and respect that you need from your husband for that to lead to a happy married life. You're going to lose that. You're not going to have that anymore. Okay, so he will be hesitant in spending time with her now. So he won't spend time with her. He'll spend more time with his friends, because she's just constantly bad mouthing him, or she's constantly very, very harsh towards him. So he will be hesitant to spend time with her, to talk to her, or to act openly as he did before. And many women complain about that. He's no longer the same. He's not like he used to be. So ask the question to yourself, why is he no longer like he used to be? Now, saying abusive or hurtful things never solves any issue. Yeah, rather, it compounds the problem by making the spouse feel insulted and degraded. That's it. He's going to feel insulted, degraded, and you're just going to do that. So men seek respect. Remember, we talked about this, that men seek respect and they crave respect in their marriage, right? And a harsh tongue is obviously antithesis to this. This is completely opposite to this, yes? A harsh tongue also causes the woman to lose respect for herself, okay? And she will progressively use worse words because she'll just progress from one to another to harsher words. And you know, but we know from the hadith that even a single word can be sufficient to enter a person into the fire. Yes, we know that. There's a hadith regarding this, to this effect. So we have to be careful. You know, hurtful statements are not just limited to abusive words and insult. Remember that. So it's not just abusive words, curses, insults, but it includes the whole spectrum of statements, from implied insults, such as, you know, when a woman says, for example, if you don't want to buy me, then, you know, I'll ask my dad. And that's a very hurtful thing to a man, that if you insult his offering of his finances that he's doing. It won't matter if he's not doing anything for you, any support for you at all. But, you know, if he's giving you that support somewhat within his means, but then to insult him in this way, to say that if you're not buying it for me, I'll tell my dad, it's a bit insulting to tell a man that, yeah? And now, so don't do it. And people think that was wrong with that, but there is something wrong with this. You're obviously hurting him. You're hurting his manlyhood, you can say. You're hurting his feelings. So don't do it. It's just going to cause you more problems. And also to wish bad for someone, to make bad du'a and to wish for things like, I've heard this, and this is a very bad one. I wish you weren't alive. You know, this is a very hurtful thing to say. I know that in the heat of the argument, sometimes people will say these things, that I wish I would never married you. I wish you weren't even alive. You know, things like this. And I've heard, you know, when we're trying to solve problems, that commonly the man complains that she said this to me. Now, how can she say this to me? And he just can't get over that. He just cannot get over that sentence that she said. And she's like, yeah, but, you know, it was the heat of the moment. I didn't mean it. And we understand that you didn't mean it, but then don't say it. To showing ingratitude, to, you know, such like saying things like, you've never done anything good for me. You know, things like this, you know, like, I've never seen any good from you. This is again from the hadith of Rasulullah, that the woman will say these kind of things, but this is something that we don't want to say, okay? Because women that do say these things were described in the hadith as women who were the dwellers of Jahannam, and I'm sure we don't want to go down that route. So this is something that we want to do. This is actually in the next slide. So moreover, whilst physical pain can heal, remember this, physical pain can heal, isn't it? Right? You heard somebody, there's a poem along these lines in Arabic, that jarahatu sinari lahal ti'amu wa la yaltamu ma jaraha al-lisanu, that the wounds of you know, the wound of the teeth, if you bite somebody and you make a wound on somebody, right, by biting them, that the wound of the teeth can be healed, isn't it? It's physical. It's going to heal one day. You can patch it up, but the wound of the tongue will never be healed, right? You can never heal it. We can never put a patch on it. What patch are you going to put on the heart? So while physical pain can heal, words of abuse have long-lasting impact on the heart and tarnish the love. It tarnishes the love that you have from before. And that's what we talked about before, that, you know, Allah created this mawadda and rahmah between the two of you. You are tarnishing that mawadda and rahmah by being harsh towards him constantly, okay? And that maintenance of that love and mercy towards you is not happening. You're not helping it at all. And it can even emotionally traumatize the spouse. You know, many people have become emotionally traumatized because of the way that their spouse has been talking to them all their life. So there is no doubt that obviously children that grow up in such an environment as well will be affected. They'll be affected emotionally, and they will see this as normal, and possibly even grow up to become that abusive husband or abusive, you know, wife or whatever else it is. So they'll grow up to be like that. So the solution simply is, remember, the first step is to realize that there's a major issue here. Understand that it's a major issue. Don't brush it aside and think that this is not a major issue. Okay, everybody, you must understand that this is a major issue. And many people can't believe the things that they say when they become so angry and upset. And we talked about that. Yeah, people can't even believe that they say these things. One should always keep check of what they say, what they utter. Remember, that's the way to do it. So before you speak, before you're going to speak, analyze 2-3 times that I'm going to say this. I'm going to have to account for this on the day of judgment. I'm going to have to stand in front of Allah and account for what I'm saying. Just as the angels are recording every word we utter, we will have to be, we will be presented in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These words will be all presented. So we're going to have to give account for this. So that's the first step of how to control the tongue. Understand before you speak, before you say anything, understand you're going to have to stand in front of Allah and give account for this one day. Now, once one realizes that they are struggling to control their tongue, then their default position, especially when angry and upset, is to adopt silence. Man samata naja, as we know the hadith, that if you stay silent, you will be successful eventually. So just stay silent sometimes. Just bite your lip, and literally sometimes you may have to bite your lip, just to prevent yourself from speaking. If one must speak, then think like 3 times if you have to. Think 2-3 times if it's necessary. That is this speech necessary? Is it beneficial? Before you speak, think about that. When you do speak, adopt the soft words, adopt the soft tone towards your spouse. And remember, no matter how you may feel at the time, your husband is not your enemy. Don't make him feel as though he's your enemy. Okay, and then hurl all sorts of abuse towards him. Because at the end of the day, this is, how we, obviously, rightfully so, we stand up against domestic abuse. And it's something which we stand up against. Then this is also abuse. One is physical abuse, the other is mental torture, mental abuse. So this is something which we stand up against as well. And we should not be doing this. So also deal with the root cause of the anger. Whatever solution makes you angry, whatever situation makes you angry or upset, try to fix them. Fix the situation, right? When it occurs, when an issue does occur, remember that your reaction must be proportionate to the issue. If your husband forgot something in the shopping, for example, the reaction may be displeasure, but it can't be that you're saying things like this, right? You're saying things like you're useless. You're just completely useless. Sorry, you're just completely useless. I wish you, and Anisha, I never married you, whatever else. You never do anything right. That's over the top, disproportionate to to what he's done. So this is important to make it proportionate, right? And one common trajectory is that which leads to misuse of the tongue is constantly replaying the negative thoughts in the mind. So if you're constantly replaying the negative thoughts in your mind, it will build, it will get you worked up to a level whereby you're going to have to then come up with a certain comment, and you're going to say something which is very rude, very abrupt, and you're going to start getting into an argument. That's because you are playing that scene or playing that negative thought that's getting you annoyed, and you're playing it over and over again in your head. So don't dwell on unnecessary thoughts, on matters that's just going to get you worked up, but don't overthink things. Finally, if you've tried to solve the issue yourselves, you've tried to solve this anger problem, this being sharp-tongued, and you've tried to solve this problem yourself and you're unsuccessful, then seek therapy or counseling, because sometimes you do need to do that, understand, as there is nothing that causes a person to lose more respect for themselves in their own eyes and in the eyes of others, and more so in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, than an abusive tongue. So abusive tongue, we know we've many hadith to mention against that. So we need to really control that. Now comes the part, I think we've done enough battering of the women, eh? So the common grievances that women have, right? The women have grievances to men. So women say generally, if I'm feeling sad, he should be able to realize from my behavior and comfort me and console me. He should be able to do that. So this is a common grievance of women, that men don't do this, men don't offer this. So this is important for men, that express your feelings. So women need to firstly express their feelings verbally and tell him how he should react. Not at that time, I'm talking about generally normal, when you're normal, that when I'm sad, I like a hug. Or when I'm sad, I like, I expect this to be done. I like some comfort, something like that. So tell him how you expect him to react. And then you will, inshallah, feel that. So men should be understanding that women seek emotional support from their partner. and it's a man's duty to ensure he provides this. This is very important. This will require him to recognize the emotions and feelings of his partner, and how can how he can help her when she's experiencing them, experiencing these feelings, these emotions, and whatever else, and support her in this. So it's important for men to realize this, that this is something that we need to do. Another thing is that women complain that he likes spending time with his friends more than me. Then realize that before marriage, he spent, first thing is that before marriage, he did spend a lot of time with his friends, if he is somebody like that, and he used to hang around his friends all the time. So he give him time to reduce that, that this time that he's spending with his friends, slowly will reduce, that he will start spending more time with you. Also, determine why he likes spending more time with his friends than you. As a natural instinct of a man is that he prefers to spend time with his wife, because obviously there are things that are being fulfilled there that the husband, that obviously our friends can't give him, as she can give him these what friends can't give. So that's important to recognize from the woman's perspective as well. Another thing is he gets very angry. He gets angry very easily and often. So he's just an angry person all the time, right? So again, determine the cause of his anger and minimize them. Don't press those buttons that cause him to get angry. And from men's perspective, men should understand that the harms of anger, and realize that getting angry often and over petty things is not normal. And sometimes a small thing happens and a major reaction takes place, and this may require anger management therapy. Okay, so sometimes you need to take therapy classes, and you have online courses nowadays as well that you can do on anger management. But this is very important for men to then realize. And another complaint that women have: he doesn't appreciate enough and recognize my efforts. So men, we need to be grateful for the efforts of the wife. The wife, when she makes effort for you, saying thank you, saying Jazakumullah, may Allah reward you, just making du'a for her, show you appreciate the different, in different ways you can show an appreciation, so this needs to be done. He doesn't help, another complaint, he doesn't help with the chores, common complaint, isn't it? So marriage is a team effort. We talked about this before. The husband should assist the wife, especially in times of need, such as illness, or even if she's simply tired. Prophet ﷺ himself used to assist his wives in the housework. It doesn't make you any less of a man because you're helping out in the house chores. But within the capacity and capability of the man, you should do. Men should also understand that women never get time off. We talked about this. Hence, her only downtime is when he assists her or shares some of the responsibilities. And the wife shouldn't build expectation from a husband to help. However, he should judge depending on the situation and offer the help. The least that the husband should do is genuinely offer to do his own chores, like I'll do my own ironing, do something, right? Such as cleaning the dishes, or clean your own dish or something, right? At least offer to do that, right? So this should be genuinely offered from the man's point of view. And then another thing is that he's like a child, he's like a baby. I have to care for him all the time. So that's what women say. So this grievance stems from the fact that the wife has to do everything for her husband, just like she does for her children. The husband should fulfill his duties. I have to make his own tea, I have to wash his dishes, I have to do everything for him. I have to pick up his plate even. He doesn't even pick up his cup of tea, teacup after he's finished from the table. So this is something that men should do, fulfill his own duties. So you can earn the respect of the wife. You want the respect from the wife, you're gonna have to earn that respect by doing certain things. Now, if he fails to carry out his duties, then he will lose respect from her, and then she will treat him like a child. And when respect is lost, it will be easy to not listen to commands, you would say, to things that each other are saying, and then to respond in a harsh way and have arguments. That'll become easier when there's no respect between the two of you. So that respect needs to be maintained to a degree. And then lastly is that he doesn't contribute enough to the marriage. So contributions to marriage are not just physically just everything in terms of emotionally, in terms of monetarily, in terms of financially, whatever it may be, the contribution to the marriage are two, two different types. One contribution is financial, other is household, and other, childcare and things like this, right? So each of these contributions is vital for a healthy marriage. It's a teamwork, as we understood. So where the husband is bearing the full financial burden, if he's doing full financial burden, it may be fair for the wife to bear then the entire household burden. Not everything, but generally the main gist of it. So, however, if the wife is also working and she's contributing financially, then the husband should also take some, a fair share of the household duties and the childcare duties to compensate. He can't expect her to do everything, like we talked about. So it's a balance in contributing to the marriage will ensure that both partners feel that they are giving and receiving a fair share in the marriage. So that's important, yeah? Now, after children, a woman's responsibility increases considerably, obviously, because she's going to have much more to do with the children and everything. So thus, it may now be necessary for the husband to assist her. It may be necessary for the husband to assist by taking up some of the household chores or taking some of the childcare duties, which may not have been may not be in priority, doing priority to the children. So sometimes you need to do these things, take certain burden off the wife. Now, there's no shame, like I said, in carrying out certain duties, like we said, the Prophet ﷺ himself did, and he's the best of examples for us, right? So these are the qualities that we learned regarding all across, learn to respect, protect, calm, be calm with one another, except have taqwa, which is very important. Taqwa is the thing that will carry the whole marriage. In a nutshell, everything we talked about, it all boils down to taqwa. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions all throughout. That if a person has taqwa, then all of these other qualities will inshallah fall in place. So that is it really from my side. If there's questions now, we can deal with certain questions. Can you hear me? Are there questions?
Yes, Officer. There is one spouse teacher a neutral person to go to, or is it still just previous?
Sorry?
Is one spouse's teacher a neutral person to go to in a conflict? Is one spouse teacher a neutral person to go to, or is it still
neutral person?
Yeah.
Okay. So because they're obviously not related or anything like that, it can be, but that is something that you're gonna have to discuss with your partner. If your partner is not comfortable that no, they're your teacher, they're going to be biased towards you. If they feel that, then obviously your partners are comfortable with it. So you're gonna have to discuss that with your partner. If your partner feels that, yeah, okay, look, I think that they'll be neutral, then it's fine. You can go to them.
What's the best way to go by the opinions of your partner that are really immature, where most of their opinions are immature?
With immature people, you're gonna have to slowly get them to understand responsibility and mature up a bit more. That's the thing, and just give them a bit of time. Sometimes responsibility does make people more mature. So it takes a bit of time sometimes, and inshallah it comes.
With regards to divorce, is the process of divorce same in all madhahib?
Process of divorce meaning one divorce, 2 and 3?
Yeah, so that's what we were talking about at the time of the question.
So yes. Yeah, all the madhahib are in consensus that 3 divorces will be 3. Okay, so that is all 4 madhahib, without any doubt, that 3 divorces are 3. Okay, and that is simply it, right? The procedure to give the divorce, though, there are slight variants that some prefer that one divorce in one, we call purity, and then she will go through a cycle. After that, she will go through her menstrual cycle, and after the menstrual cycle, when she becomes pure again, then you issue a second divorce. So some of these kind of opinions, but it's something eventually you give. Nobody says to give 3 divorces in one go. No madhab says that, and no scholar would approve of that, and that is really it, really. There are slight, obviously, variants of what to do after divorce and things, but the gist of it is the same. There's not much difference. Yes.
According to Sharia, in the premarital meeting, is it necessary to have the mahram in the same room or close by, from where he can hear the conversation, or in the conference call if the meeting is done online?
So as I said before, if you remember that slide we talked about in the khalwa, so it boils down to khalwa, isn't it, what you're saying? So you can't be in seclusion. Seclusion is where a third party cannot see you or cannot walk in onto you. So it doesn't have to necessarily hear the conversation, but they have to be able to at least see you, or the room has to be open that they can walk in anytime. Okay, so they don't have to necessarily be there or listen to your conversation.
Inshallah. Mostly we hear marrying a divorced woman is something positive. What is the thought about marrying a divorced man?
So, meaning I think the stigma more is on divorced women, isn't it? That a man doesn't want to marry a divorced woman, but generally man being divorced is okay. That's the stigma in society, isn't it? Meaning, is that what you're talking about? Meaning,
I'm not really sure if the question I can clarify, inshallah.
Yeah, clarify the question maybe. Yeah.
The next question is men. Let's see. Yep. Men seem to generally take advantage of women by requiring them to do more than they should. Have you seen this in your experience, and why is this the case?
Men want women to do more than what they should.
Ji.
Well, it comes to tit and tat. That's what I say. Yes, I mean, there is definitely certain expectation. There is definitely a certain expectation from a man that he expects his wife to do certain things, but then that should be asked. That's why I said at the beginning, before marriage, that should be something that should be asked. So you should ask that, what's your understanding of a role of a wife? Then what should a wife do? And then he'll say in it that, okay, I expect her to cook, to clean, to do everything for me, to, you name it, yeah. And then you'll know that he's expecting a bit too much from me, innit? Right? Mm-hmm. So that's the way to do it, right? You have to make sure you've asked from before. If you've not asked from before and then it gets loaded onto you, then you're going to have to sit down and talk to him that, look, I can't do these things. It's too much for me. You're going to have to be reasonable here. And he's going to have to push his weight as well. If he's expecting that many things to be done, then he's going to have to be pushing his weight too.
Men seem to generally take a... no, that was done. How much influence should or can a husband or wife have on their spouse's clothing?
As much as they want, as much as they can. Yeah, because obviously you dress for your partner, right? So if your partner doesn't like a certain dress sense, then you should think about changing that, right? Okay, so they don't like a certain dress sense, then yeah, you should definitely change that, as long as within the boundaries of Sharia, meaning yes. Then how much influence within the boundaries of Sharia, then yeah, your partner is the one you dress for, isn't it, really? I understand that you dress for yourself too, but you can change your likes and dislikes. If you can't, if you like something so much, then you're going to have to get your partner to like it. So yeah, definitely dress sense is something that you would influence, yes.
If a divorced single mother of a girl gets rishta, but they demand that the girl's father should not come even to meet his daughter, what should be done?
What's the first part?
If a divorced single mother of a girl gets rishta, but they demand that girl's father should not come even to meet his daughter, what should be done?
That's an unreasonable demand, isn't it? Come to meet the daughter, meaning after marriage they're talking about, I think, yeah?
Gee.
No, that's unreasonable, right? You can't they can't make you abandon your family unless it's like something really dire, like the very bad influence on you or something. Then that's different. Then you keep a minimal contact. But demanding that they not have any contact, this is unreasonable.
Gee.
Okay.
I don't really understand this next question, Mustafa. I'm not sure. A YouTube question: should you stay in a marriage for kids? Oh, actually, yes. So, should you stay in a marriage for the sake of kids?
100% no. Okay, this is something that I was maybe of an opinion that for the sake of the kids, stay together. But as obviously over the years, I understood and I learned, and I even obviously studied some of this as well, that it's not healthy for the kids to be in a relationship, to be in, meaning to be in a relationship for the sake of the kids, whereby your relationship is very, very, hostile, you would say. Okay, many parents think that no, we can be, we're okay in front of the kids, but your kids are going to grow up thinking that this is normal life. This is the way life is. So being in a marriage just for the sake of the kids is not something reasonable that you should be doing. What you should be doing is trying to solve the issues that you have. Okay, I don't see, if two people sit down on a table with the right intentions that we've mentioned, there is no reason why you cannot come to a solution. If two big countries, right, if we're talking about countries here, yes, two countries who are on total opposite spectrums, and they sit on the table and they make a treaty and they can get on with one another, then what, husband and wife can't do this? They've had kids together as well, you're telling me, right? So if they've had kids together, they must have had something, right? You don't just have kids with somebody totally stranger, somebody that you don't see life with. So yeah, so there's definitely something there, but you just need to lay down your guard a bit. You just need to give in to one another and learn how to make both of your life better. That's what I would say.
Does Mufti Sahib encourage newlyweds to live away from family to prevent issues with in-laws occurring?
I generally do. Obviously, this is general, I say, because obviously you have to judge each situation as it is. If somebody's got like a lone mother or something, yeah, and they got nobody else to care for their mother, then they might want to think twice about that, right? So that's up to them to decide what they want to do about that. But as far as my general advice is, in a general case whereby the mother can get by and the rest of it, then yeah, I do tend to people that move away, because nowadays we see this doesn't work a lot more than previously, because like I said, multiple reasons mentioned already earlier. But yeah, from experience, you see that it just creates turmoil. And what I tell, especially the boys here, the men here, what I would say to them, that look, everybody can see problems creating between, if you can see problems creating between your mother and your wife, and you start noticing the initial stages of those problems, don't just brush under the carpet and say it'll be okay, don't worry, it'll be okay, and just carry on saying that, playing a referee, because one day things will hit south and it will become a big problem for you to then be able to deal with. So either solve the problem, and if you can't solve the problem, then start making moves, try to think of how you can move out in the best way. And then you will see that you will have a much better life. And everybody I've told this to, I've always got good feedback from. And they've always said to me that I don't know why I didn't move out earlier, I didn't listen to your advice earlier, because it just saves the peace. It gives that respect that there is between, that little bit, you would say, of respect that is between your wife and your mother. That respect will be maintained somewhat. Okay, and then you will have days that you can even visit, like on the Eid day, you want to go to your parents' house with your family, your wife will come. But if you've let it get to a stage where it's become so bad that police were involved and all sorts of things, because there'll be these kind of cases, and if you've let it get to that, then a time when then you're going to have to move out on it, because you've got kids with your wife now. So you are going to move out, realistically speaking. You're going to end up choosing that. So if you do that, then what will happen is, firstly, your mother will be so hurt, because your mother will think that you've chosen your wife over her, although she'll understand why, but your mother will be hurt. And then secondly, on an Eid day, when you say that, come, let's go to my mum's, she will not come, your wife will not come. And then you are to blame, because you let it get to that stage. So when she doesn't want to come, because you let it get to a stage where she can't stand your mother anymore, and then you're gonna have a big problem on Eid day with your wife, a big argument on a day when you're meant to be a day of happiness for you. So you let it get to that stage, didn't you? That's the thing I say to you. So realize those problems and see those problems from before, that this is heading down the wrong route. So I need to start making moves here. Be a wise person in that, is what I'm saying.
Gee. Can the wife fall into the category of being cursed if she rejects intimacy after an argument? Can that not be a valid reason?
Can it not be a valid reason? Yeah, I suppose depends on the argument, isn't it? But it can be a valid argument. It can be.
Men don't usually want to go for counselling. How can go get around this? How can you get around this?
Yeah, how can you get around this? This is a tricky one, but sometimes you just have to be a bit brave and just tell him like an ultimatum that, you know what, it's not going to work if you don't do this. You're going to have to do it, and make him nicely understand firstly before you go to ultimatum route. But make him understand nicely that what's the problem of going, like what's the thing, and obviously he'd say that I don't want to tell other people our problems. So we go to somebody who doesn't know us. You never see that person in your life. We'll go to somebody who completely doesn't know us, completely from a different area, and in fact they're from a different culture as well, different background. So we'll go to somebody. Is there a problem there? Then what's the problem now? So you have to solve the problems that he's got in his head, and hopefully then you will get somewhere. But it is very difficult. I know that it is very difficult to get the man on the table. But once he does it once, then he does realize that why didn't I do this earlier? I could have just solved the problem so much more easier.
What if you ask and they lie and then after they expect? I'm not sure what this is referring to. In terms of intimacy, what if the wife is being rejected?
She can't be as well. And obviously, the wife shouldn't be rejected. It's her right to intimacy. But we don't have that curse hadith mentioned for him. Yes, most probably because it doesn't happen often. But she has a right to intimacy as well, just as the husband has a right to intimacy. So yeah, she shouldn't be rejected as well. And if she is being rejected, then that's something that they need to discuss.
Do mothers have a role to train their sons to understand their roles and responsibilities?
Definitely. Mothers, not just mothers, fathers as well. Yeah, mothers and fathers both have a role to explain, to show to their children what they should be doing, especially for boys. Okay, mothers, stop, mollycoddling your children in a way whereby you're picking up their plate for them, you're doing everything for them. Let them pick up their plate after food. Let them do certain things that they should be doing, because then when they get married to somebody, they're not going to do anything.
Okay.
They're going to expect their wife to do everything for them. And obviously you've been in that position, being a wife, a mother's been in that position, and it's always obviously helpful to have a husband who understands. So you want to create your children with this kind of mindset that they should be helping around certain things.
Okay. What is Muftī Sahib's experience in dealing with mahar negotiations? Is there a reasonable first amount to suggest without offending anyone?
That depends on what background you come from, eh? So some communities have a very high expectation of mahar. So it will depend on that. I don't know. I just normally leave that to the family members to sort out, really. But yeah, you should be, obviously, if you have a certain wish to not have a mahar too high or certain thing in your mahar, then you should express that and be quite strong in that, really. That I don't want my mahar, I want my mahar to be this, for example, or whatever it may be.
After seeing men having bad experience with them when looking for a spouse, how do you stay positive and not let your background influence?
Say again, after?
I didn't really understand this question as well. After seeing men and having bad experience with them, after seeing men and having bad experience with them when looking for a spouse, how do you stay positive and not let your background influence? I guess influence your attitude or something.
Okay, I mean, I think we've discussed this previously, meaning how to stay positive. Remember, like, if you've had a bad experience in terms of a rishta, you mean, yes? I think that's what you mean. You had a bad experience regarding a rishta. So then just remember that it's not down to you that things didn't work out or something.
There's a clarification. How do you remain positive when married after having bad previous and bad experience with men from family and employment and siblings with in-laws? This is quite mixed up. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
It's really being married with somebody. If you're married with somebody, a bad experience with somebody married.
Yeah.
Then remember, all men are not the same. You can't judge everybody. You can't paint everybody with the same brush. Okay, that would be unfair to do. So stay positive in the way whereby, inshallah, whoever the right person is will be written for you, and inshallah, Allah will give you something happiness. Will give you some sort of happiness, inshallah, in your life. So the right person will be there for you. You just have to go down the right process to look for that right person, inshallah.
What if in-laws have really high expectations and the daughter-in-law has done as much as she can to meet their needs, but still they're not happy and satisfied?
So that needs to be made clear by the husband. So that needs to be made clear with the wife, the wife, the girl, the woman in this position will need to discuss with the husband in a nice way. Look, I'm doing this, and I can't do this. I can't do this more than this. I just don't have the time. I just don't have the energy, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And the husband's going to have to, understand that, and then, he's going to have to portray that to his family. That look, it is unrealistic to think that she can run the whole house. And if it's still not working, last case would be then to make moves to try to move out. But remember, women don't push too much when it comes to trying to move out, because at the end of the day, it's not easy for the man to do. But you give suggestions and you try your best, and then inshallah he will see the light and he will eventually move out.
If traits show up after the marriage, like drug abuse, addiction to porn, is this grounds for divorce?
Grounds for divorce means what? I get this question in terms of grounds for divorce, meaning a ground for divorce would be anything that you deem that you can't stay in this marriage because of. Okay? If you think that I cannot stay in this marriage because of this, that's your ground of divorce, isn't it? That's something that you feel as though it's a grounds for divorce. Nobody can say to you that, no, that's not grounds for divorce. I don't think that, because at the end of the day, different people have different tolerance levels. Somebody can tolerate somebody being even physically abusive towards them, and they can stay in that marriage. And you tell them, no, you shouldn't be in this marriage. And they're like, no, I want to be in this marriage. What do you say to that person? Does it make sense? Their tolerance level may be, though it's not. So different tolerance levels, isn't it? Different people have different tolerance levels. So it will depend on your tolerance level. If you cannot tolerate being in a relationship with somebody who is, like you're saying, drug abuse and whatever else, right? So if you cannot be in a relationship with somebody like that, then your tolerance level, this is beyond it. But if your tolerance level is that, no, I'm going to help my partner and I'm going to get them through this and I'm going to stay with them, then that's your tolerance level. So does it make sense? So you can't say that, I don't think it'd be right for us to judge and on a blanket ruling saying that this is grounds for grounds for divorce or not. That will depend on whether you can put up with it or not. Does it make sense?
Can Mufti Sahib discuss contraception? Can Mufti Sahib discuss contraception within marriage and what is and what isn't halal?
Contraception is generally allowed when it's temporary. Okay, so generally temporary contraception is going to be allowed. I guess that the contraception, when it's being used, is going to be used for the right reasons. The right reasons will simply be things like, you've, for example, you can't medically have a child, or you can't. Let's say, what I would generally say to people is that you're not sure whether this person is suitable to be the mother or the father of your child. So that wouldn't be for long term. That would be temporary again. So any sort of valid reason, barring the reasons for, like, we know that in the Quran it mentions about لا تقتلوا أولادكم خشية إملاق. So not because of poverty, that I won't be able to afford the child. So because of rizq, reasons. So as long as it's not those reasons, generally any other reason would be a valid reason speaking, and then temporary contraception would be allowed. Okay, so that's the contraception in marriage. Recommended would be not to have those types of contraception which messes around with the body. So like pills and IUDs and things like that, because then you're going to have then problems working out your menstrual cycles and things like that. or in the future when you do want to get when you do want to have a child, it may play a part. So use other types of temporary contraception which doesn't play about with the body, but that's down to your personal preferences. At the end of the day, you are allowed the temporary contraceptions for valid reasons. So if you, for example, had a child recently, very recently, and you can't have another child because you just can't do tarbiyah, you cannot look after another child straight away, then you can use temporary contraception for that reason as well, things like that.
How important is cooking for your husband? Have you seen in your experience, especially if girl did not have to cook at home and her career makes it difficult to do so regularly? Shall I read
How
that again?
important is cooking for your husband?
Mm.
It depends on your relationship with your husband in terms of expectation. If your husband expects you to cook, yeah, and that's what he expects, he doesn't expect you to work or anything like that, then yeah, it would probably be important to maintain a smooth relationship, right? But if it's something that you feel as though, no, I don't need to do, I don't want to do, and I'm just focused on my career, and I'm a working girl, then you make that clear that this is my mindset, my style. And if he prefers that, then that's fine, that's all good. Then they can cook together, they can have takeaway, they can do whatever they want to do, to order all these packed lunches from different people's houses, that you have all of these things nowadays, right? So that's up to them, whatever solution they can come to. But again, this is one that um, they would have to work out between the two of them. You can't say that this is right and this is wrong. What works for them is what I'd say.
Gee. Are there any du'as to protect the couple from the whispering of shaitan in trying to break the marriage?
ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين وجعلنا للمتقين إمام. This is constant dua. This is the dua that you constantly make after every salah. It doesn't matter if you're having no issues in your relationship. I say that just constantly make that dua. You will see the benefits of that dua, inshallah.
If two people are of the similar mindset but speak different languages, where one understands the language of the other person but they feel like they can express themselves better in their native language, would you recommend one to go on such a proposal?
You can, it depend on mindset. If your mindset is very much similar, and you think you can get on with this person just because of language, doesn't mean that you don't get married to the person. But if language is something which matters to you quite a lot, because communication matters a lot to you, then you're going to have to work out whether you want to go forward or not. So it will depend on how important you regard language to be. But there's plenty of people that get married to those who they can't natively communicate with, but they live very happy lives. They're very happy lives. So it's not a major issue, I would think, anyway.
And then the follow-up question, have you seen such cases go well in your counseling experiences?
Yep. I think I've answered already. Yes, I've seen plenty of cases that go very well, even though they don't speak to each other in their native languages. Yes.
May I ask, is it permissible to take precautions to try to prevent in having children if you have a genuine reason, like you desire to study or you don't feel ready?
Study maybe, but ready means what? Because when are you going to be ready? That's the question, right? So, at the end of the day, you'll have children when you have children. But if you feel as though you're not ready in terms of not being able to do tarbiyah of the children, then that's different. But that's meaning that's allowed, maybe. But not ready means nothing really. If you're ready to get married, then you're ready to have children.
What's Muftī Sahib's advice, as in what one should do if one feels one cannot find a spouse, as in they can't find proposals, not necessarily the person is rejecting when someone comes, but they don't know how to go about, not sure where to find in terms of Sharia.
Yeah, so this is one that I did mention earlier, and inshallah I will, this is marriage networks that you have, that I know of currently, yes. there are also other marriage websites that you can go onto. I can't remember the names for the websites, but there are certain matrimonial websites. So this is Sunnah Nikah UK. This is run by a few of our teachers and colleagues. They have a database and they match people up, pair people up. They used to have they still have a WhatsApp group and things. So you can fill up a CV of yourselves and post it with them, and they will send proposals to you. Then Masajid have a database. I know that East London Masjid have a database, and they'll pair people up for you as well. They will send proposals to you. Then generally speaking, imams of mosques, so you tell your father, your brother, whoever else is the imams of the masjid, they generally get proposals, like they get told by musallis that if you have anyone in mind, then let me know, for my daughter, for my son. So imams also have people that come up to them, and then you can go onto, like I said, those websites, matrimonial websites. That I can't remember the name of it, but there was a brother that was doing it, and he came to actually see us as well, and he was telling us how they have a very Shari'i orientated what do you call a website run, which there's no photos shared, there's only description, and then you get paired up. Then you have to you look at the person that shows interest in you, you approve, and then there needs to be a wali involved. So there needs to be a wali, and then the wali's numbers get shared, and then the walis will decide what to do. They will get in touch, and then they will, maybe perhaps share photos later on in the stage. So there's walis actually involved in things. So when you have these kind of websites, they're obviously quite helpful as well. Does that make it clear?
What is the ruling of a single what is the ruling for a single mother of a baby girl to get married in terms of considering her child's future and issues of custody?
Meaning she's a single mother, and she wants to get married herself. Nothing wrong with that. Absolutely fine.
What's your opinion if a girl?
What was it at the end? Was it in terms of?
In terms of considering her child's future and issues of custody.
Yeah, so child's future will not be affected by the mother getting married, okay? The mother is perfectly allowed to get married, just as the father is allowed to get married. There's nothing wrong with getting married, okay? But in terms of custody rights, yes, if the mother has custody, Shar'an, if the mother has custody and she gets, if she gets married, then yes, she will no longer have the right to the custody. If the father decides that no, you can keep the custody of the child, then that's up to him to make that decision. But the father can then say that you're married to somebody else now, and I'm taking the custody of the child, and that's what can happen.
What's your opinion? What's your opinion if a girl is finding it hard to get married, if she considers those who live far, although she knows she will be homesick and cause a lot of taklif on her parents with long distance? Should she wait for proposals nearby, although she's getting older?
No, I don't. It's a thought, but when you actually do it and you take that step of moving far away, I'm sure people have done that, then it's not something that you can't do. As long as the proposal is good, I don't think where they're situated should be a big problem. The proposal needs to be good. The person needs to care for you. If they're able to care for you, then you won't be worried about missing and missing home and the rest of it.
If the child's father has never supported financially throughout their life, nor has he ever come to meet his daughter, does he have the right to meet his daughter later in life when she grows up, or does he have a right to come to her wedding?
Yeah, he'll always have a right. He'll remain to be the father, right? Father's the father, just as the mother is the mother. You can't take the motherhood away. You can't take the fatherhood away. So, he can meet her, he can see her whenever he wants. Of course he can do that. Yeah, he's not fulfilling his duties, but that doesn't mean that you take away the rights that he can see his daughter or anything. He can make amends anytime he wants to.
In relation to the above question I asked, if your parents don't get on well, is it still okay for daughter or son to go ahead with marriage, even though you feel this may affect when they go ahead with this journey of searching for marriage, as the daughter may not be allowed to tell her father as she is close to mum from mum's side. Any advice if someone's facing this situation?
So somebody wrap up that question to me? What's he saying? It's too long. I can get it.
So he went to fetch him as a food because me having been deceased.
Sorry, someone's talking in the
Sorry.
mic.
With the food outside. The mic is
All right, let me just meet her, inshallah. Sorry, I need to understand this question myself also.
Okay, we'll move on to the next one. While someone answered on that one, then you can maybe.
This is the final question.
Okay, go on.
It's on the screen. I mean, you can read it if you wish, inshallah.
On the chat.
Yeah, the last comment.
Okay, in relation to the question, the last one. Okay. If the parents don't get on well, what's that to do with the son and daughter going ahead with marriage? So even though you feel this way,
there's a clarifying question. Parents live in the same house, but they don't get along. Is this detrimental for daughter's marriage?
I don't see it being detrimental. Yeah, it may make an effect sometimes. Yeah, definitely, because it may have an effect. But what can you do about that? Is there anything you can do about that to change the situation? So I think it's pointless talking about it, right? You need to get married as a daughter, as the girl, you need to get married. So you have to look for the right person, inshallah, the right person when you find. They will look beyond that, innit? They look beyond the situation that your parents are in, So hopefully that will be the case.
This question came up before, so I think it was left till quick Q&A. It's come up again. Any advice on introducing potential for polygamy with wife?
Yeah, I purposefully did not include this polygamy discussion, but because it demands a whole discussion to properly explain it, right? But just to because you're asking about it, then you just need to consider one thing, that obviously we believe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be our creator, but we understand that He would have looked after all our needs. And if in the Quran Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed the man to marry up to 4, then just think about it, there must be a reason. Just think that, yeah, there must be a reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed the man to marry 4. And if he's not, allowed the same for a woman, there must be a reason. Besides the fact that, you're thinking that, because she's going to have children with everybody, there's going to be confusion and the rest of it. But that doesn't matter, innit? If Allah makes a ruling, then Allah makes a ruling, right? So the thing is, there must be a reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed something. You just have to consider that in terms of the shahwat, the desire that the man will maybe have, and the rest of it. And there's a lot on that. There's a lot on that. I mean, we can go on for ages talking about this, but the thing is that you need to consider this. Sometimes if you can't, meet the demands, maybe you can't. He can't be happy with one, maybe, or whatever else, maybe. Then you just need to consider it. You need to talk about it. And talking about it with the spouse will help more than anything else. Put it that way. Rather than brushing it aside and leaving it like the sleeping giant that no one talks about, but you want to make sure that you talk about the issue if it's an issue, huh?
Okay. Should we continue with questions, Musab, or
how many more we got?
There's a few more coming, but as we answer, more are coming in.
Okay, so I think we'll leave on the amount of questions there are now, and we'll just answer them because they've already been asked. So nobody asked any more questions.
Okay,
go on.
What's the ideal power dynamics between spouses?
Power dynamics. Yeah, it's going to have to be a meaning in terms of qawwam, meaning obviously the amir of the household will have to be the husband, right? If that was what you mean. But there needs to be mashwara from the amir with the people of the household. So obviously that includes the wife, right? So there needs to be some sort of consideration with her regarding her opinions that she mentions, and in things that she may know better, then in those things even giving preference to her opinions, and in other things. Then so the way you work is the marriage word, or it gives it to you, the power dynamics. And the marriage is a marriage, right? It's a partnership. It's something that you work together in. Otherwise, becoming dictator and ruling like the dictator will not become a very harmonious marriage. Put it that way.
Follow-up question from yesterday's one about second wife. If you don't want your husband to have a second wife, then is it enough to discuss this prior to the marriage during the meetings? How you won't be okay with this?
Yeah, you can do. You can discuss that. Of course you can. Yeah, if you think that that's something that you need to mention, then mention it. There's no reason why you cannot mention. But be clear about it. Be clear about this is something that I absolutely will not accept. And that's it. So he knows where you stand with that.
If a friend consults you frequently and is having problems with their spouse, but you can only lend them an ear as you don't have the solutions yourself, would you be sinful for it? As in, would it be ghiba?
No. It's not ghiba if you're trying to, obviously, here and there you try to give them solutions. Here and there you'll try to offer some sort of solution, inshallah.
What's your opinion if a girl's finding it hard to get married, if she considers those who live far, although she knows she will be homesick and causing a lot of... Okay, this one's already done. If the person is not religious but has good akhlaq and the person's family has Western approach, should the girl's family go ahead with the proposal?
If the person's not religious, yeah? But has good akhlaq. I don't know, it depends on how much you want to put religiosity to the fore, innit? If you regard religiosity to be your number one priority and that's not being ticked, then you want to be considering, so it depends on how religious yourself you are. If you're somebody who is not so pious and religious yourself, you just about pray your 5 times salah maybe, then you might consider this proposal. But if you're somebody you're on your tahajjud maybe, right? And you're fasting every so often and you're quite religious, then you probably be saying no to this proposal.
That was the last question, Muftī Sahib.
Yeah, not necessarily, but yeah, probably. You'll have to look at other factors as well, yeah? You have to look at how much you can make that person come into deen. Because obviously people can come into deen after marriage as well, but you'll have to look at how much you can influence them. If they're a person that can be influenced or not. And if they aren't, then yeah, you would be saying no. Okay, I think we'll leave it there. I think questions will continue. But
I've had to disable the chat.
Okay. Now I hope that people have had some benefit. I mean, the last few things were these marriage counselors. If anyone wants these marriage counselors, this is the ones I know of. That's why I'm mentioning them. Obviously, there will be many others as well. And then reading materials. This is very important. Just take a snapshot of this. Men of Mars, Women from Venus, just to understand the different mindsets. You can understand from the title itself that, different mindsets. The 5 Languages of Love, a very good book as well. Then there's this one, Brain Sex, the difference between men and women. That's also similar to that, but it's very, very good scientific evidences to show how men and women are different. And a handbook of healthy Muslim marriage by Muftī Abdurrahman Manghera. So these books, obviously there are many more, Ashur's Blessings, and there's quite a few books, but these books I would recommend doing reading together. So you read as a couple together, so you read a few pages every day. It gives you some time together as well. Because many times you complain about not spending time together. So when you have a time set for yourselves that you're going to read from some book together, and you can introduce a bit of ta'aleem as well, some hadith, some whatever else you enjoy. And that will give you some alone time together, quality time. And the benefit of that would be that you're building your knowledge of marriage and your knowledge of deen together. So your spirituality will be lifting together. So generally people complain that, we're not on the same wavelength in terms of marriage, in terms of spirituality as well. But that's because you're continuing to up your spirituality, but you're not taking your partner with you. So what you need to do as well sometimes is that do ta'aleem together. So what happens that you are taking taking each other together. That's the previous slide. Okay, is that okay, everybody? And that's the end of it.
We went over an hour. Subhanallah.
Allah Ta'ala grant you all happy married lives. Those who are not married, grant you all an ideal spouse, an ideal partner, one that you can be happy with, inshallah. And those who are married, Allah Ta'ala grant you all happy married lives, a lifelong honeymoon period, inshallah, and give us all the happiness of this world and hereafter, and give us His closeness, and give us the ability to take benefit from this blessed month of Ramadan that we are in as well. And make dua for everybody, make dua for yourselves and everybody else as well, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, Mustafa, for the take.
Jazakumullah for joining. Jazakumullah for joining. Let me share this as well with yourselves. Allah Ta'ala grant you all goodness. Ameen.
Ameen. Jazakallah for taking the time from your busy schedule to prepare this presentation, Mustafa, and delivering it in such a detailed and informative and relatable manner. MashaAllah, presenting some real life examples from a place of real experience, MashaAllah. I think definitely a lot of the examples or concepts that you mentioned, they really resonated with most of us, if not all, as we could see from the responses on the chat section, alhamdulillah. I think I speak for everyone when I say that we've all learned a great deal and have much greater understanding of various topics that were presented, mashallah. Right from choosing the right partner, how to go about vetting them, living with them harmoniously, and tackling conflicts. Barakallahu feekum wa nashkurukum wa nad'u lakum Allah yanfa'ana bikum wa yaj'al al-karima hadha as-sa'ya fi mizani hasanatikum.
Ameen.
Jazakallah for your patience almost with all the questions. I think it did go for quite long as long. Subhanallah, the brothers and sisters, they have a lot of questions. Yaqub. Inshallah, la nutil alaykum. Just to finish up, inshallah, before we end, I can ask brothers and sisters to keep connected with our social media platforms. We'll also be launching our website as well, where you can view our upcoming courses as well, like these, inshallah. We plan on launching a tajweed for brothers and some courses for sisters as well on fiqh of hayd and how to strengthen your iman and things like that as well. We've also got a maktab course in the pipeline as well, inshallah. We ask Muftī to make dua for this venture as well, inshallah. That it brings us success and is successful.
Allah Ta'ala, I was very happy to see that, mashallah, you've started this. The brothers and whoever else, the sisters, whoever may be involved in behind the scenes. Allah Ta'ala, take the work from you people, inshallah. Allah give you, take you from strength to strength and give you the ability to do the khidmah of His deen. Ameen, Ya Rabb.
Ameen. Can we ask for a short dua, inshallah, before we conclude?
Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما صليت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى ال محمد كما باركت على ابراهيم وعلى ال ابراهيم انك حميد مجيد. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد. اللهم صل على محمد النبي الامي وعلى اله وسلم تسليما. يا ربي صل وسلم دائما ابدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم. جزا الله عنا محمدا صلى الله عليه وسلم بما هو اهله. اللهم لك الحمد كله ولك الشكر كله علانيته وسره. أهلا أنت أن تحمد، أهلا أنت أن تعبد، أهلا أنت أن تطاع. اللهم لك الحمد حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه. اللهم لك الحمد بكل نعمة أنعمت علينا. اللهم لك الحمد حتى ترضى ولك الحمد إذا رضيت. اللهم لا نحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك.
آمين.
ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. لا إله إلا الله نستغفرك ونسألك الجنة الفردوس ونعوذ بك من النار ونعوذ بك من عذاب القبر ونعوذ بك من الفتن خصوصا من فتنة الدجال. يا رب العالمين يا حنان يا منان. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. رب اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا حنان يا منان يا بديع السماوات والأرض يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. Ya Allah, we have gathered here, we have listened to this, Ya Allah, the brothers and sisters who have listened today, Yes Allah, and all those who have listened previously as well, and all those who are listening through the recording as well. Ya Allah, give them all the barakah and blessings. For you grant the knowledge, Ya Allah, you grant the amal, Ya Allah, you grant those things to be said, Ya Allah, all that we have said good, Ya Allah, you grant the noor of that, you grant us the noor of that in our hearts. Ya Allah, grant us the ability to understand and listen and act upon what we learn, and to propagate and fulfill the requirements and the duties and the rights of the knowledge that we learned. Ya Rabbi Kareem. Ya Allah, give us the ability to disseminate, to give out the knowledge in the correct way, Ya Allah, to give out it in the best way to please you, Ya Allah. Grant us your pleasure, Ya Kareem. Grant us your ma'iyyat, Ya Allah. Grant us your closeness. Ya Allah, we desire your closeness, Ya Allah. We desire your hubb, your love, and the love of your beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Grant us this, Ya Allah. Become pleased with us. Ya Allah, become pleased with us. Ya Allah, accept our ibadat, accept everything from us, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, we don't have anything that is worthy, Ya Allah, but just as a child will bring to us a card that they have written on, a little child will bring to us this card that they have doodled over, and they've given this card to us with not even proper writing, but we will accept this card of Eid, happy Eid. We will accept this from them with such love because of the thought that they had, Ya Rabbi. In the same way we present our ibadat to you, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, and the love you have for us is much more than our parents would have, much more than this parent would have for this child, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, with this love that you have, Ya Allah, accept our ibadat, Ya Allah. Accept us for the khidmah of your deen, Ya Allah. We were here to serve your deen. Ya Allah, accept us, Ya Allah, accept us for the path, your path, to propagate your path, propagate your message, Ya Allah. Allah, accept all of us, Ya Allah, all those people here, Ya Allah, any du'as in their minds that are jaiz, Ya Allah, accept their du'as, Ya Kareem. Ya Allah, relieve everybody of their difficulties, Ya Allah, grant comfort and peace in their lives, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, these people that have started these courses, Ya Rabbi, this institute, Ya Allah, grant them from strength to strength, and grant them the ability to continue to do the khidmah and service of your deen, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, accept their works, Ya Allah, accept their works, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, protect them from all evil, Ya Allah, protect us all from all evil, Ya Kareem. Ya Allah, grant us all the khair that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked for. Ya Allah, protect us from all the evil and any shar that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sought protection from. Ameen, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, grant us all that we have asked for, and you know what is best for us. Ya Allah, grant us even more than that, Ya Kareem. Ya Allah, we show thanks to you, Ya Allah. Ya Allah, you are our Lord, Ya, we are your servants, Ya Kareem. Ya Allah, we are your servants. Ya Allah, make us your true servants. آمين يا رب العالمين. اللهم أنت السلام ومنك السلام، تباركت يا ذا الجلال والإكرام، وصلى الله على النبي الأمي. آمين يا رب العالمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
جزاكم الله خيرا مصطفى.